Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of enthralling and exciting racing action in the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 18 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly brought to you in collaboration with SimRacing International. Here we are then for our penultimate round of the season and we have made our way all the way back to the US of A. It's crazy to think the only time we've been in the USA earlier on this season was our pre-season event at SimRacing International Raceway in the state of Florida. But we've made our way somewhat elsewhere in the country. We're made our way to the state of Georgia for the Brazelton Town Circuit. It is, of course, none other than the roller coaster ride of road racing action. It is the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Opened in 1970 as a means to feature on the Can-Am calendar when one venue had to drop out and one had to be quickly found, this circuit that was erected in only 6 months has gone to become one of the very best in the world. Now, of course, only 2.54 miles in length or 12 corners in nature, it sounds a little bit underwhelming. So why exactly is it considered to be one of the best in the world and not just in the country? Well, you have to look under the details to be able to find that, and indeed it's all the elevation changes that are interwoven into its length that make this circuit one of the very hardest to actually get right. The first half a lap, a whole series of sweeping S-bends with elevation changes, rise and falls, quickly interwoven into the opening 7 corners, after which there's a very long back straight, and there's the run for a chicane, and all the way over a rise and into a drop to do it all over again. A lap round here will be less than 1.5 minutes for our GT3 drivers, but indeed the laps will come quick, the thrills and spills will come even quicker. And at the end of it all, it's going to be a test for our drivers, not just about one lap pace, but also about consistency, given the fact that here there's very few brake markers and turn-in markers, and it means for our drivers they need to make sure their muscle memory is absolutely on point, because they make one single mistake, it could all end up in the barrier very quickly, and it could see them out of the race. But who exactly is going to take victory here today? Who exactly is going to be smiling in Hall County, and make sure they go into the season finale in only a week's time at Donington's Grand Prix circuit, with the points on their side and the championship lead behind them? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out as we bring you this broadcast live from circuit side. Indeed, you're catching all the racing action live today, and we promised you we try and bring you all the broadcasts live where possible for the showdown rounds, and the good news is we're definitely on course to do so as we bring you all the race action for round 9 of 10 today. This broadcast being brought to you in the one place you can catch it on a weekly basis, and of course on youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International SRI, and why not subscribe today so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasted racing action, not just from our Sunday Showdown series, but also from our whole variety of series hosted on a weekly basis, including GT3s and also GTEs. But still, if you are subscribed, and indeed if you are in the chat right now, even if you're not subscribed, you're very welcome to say hi. Don't be shy, feel free to let us know how you're doing today and who exactly you're on to hear on to cheer on and how your weekend's gone. And if you had a bit of a disappointing weekend, if it's been a bit of a boring weekend, well, let's try and make sure we turn that frown upside down into a good old smile. And in the commentary booth you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh and I shall be your host and commentator for this season and indeed for this round as well. As we make our way into this round, of course, well, there's one question we have outstanding. How exactly did our drivers get on the last time out at Magny-Cours? And what exactly is the situation when it comes to the standings coming into our penultimate round, the second of our showdown rounds? Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue our tour around the globe. For as we can see, we've made another step towards our conclusion. On the 7th of June, in a week's time, we'll be at the Donington Grand Prix circuit in the heart of the United Kingdom in Leicestershire, and it will be where we bring the curtain down. But before that, we're here today for the 31st of May at Road Atlanta. But prior to that, last time out on the 24th of May, we were in France. I won a trip to the country for the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. And what exactly went down in the first of our showdown rounds, where an extra 50% points are up for grabs, and every win is worth 150 points rather than the normal 100. What we got to see at Magny-Cours was a circuit that was very difficult to overtake at, and indeed it has a staple in history for being that way, where it be an open wheel or closed wheel racing, including GT3s. However, it did not disappoint because it was a sweltering hot day, not necessarily on the simulator itself. It was relatively cool conditions with plenty of cloud at Magny-Cours, but it was sweltering hot for many of our drivers in their sim rigs, with the European continent in particular seeing a major heat wave, and therefore it meant that for many in their sheds or their bedrooms, their studies, you name it, where they're racing from, and even here in the commentary booth, the thermometer was hitting upwards of 35 degrees centigrade, and I do believe for a few drivers it actually reached about 42 if not 45 in their sim racing rigs. However, surviving the sweat and surviving the sweltering storm, we got seen qualifying at least a very close overall top 3 of Thomas Noakes, Harvey Wheeler and Mikey Stewart, and they set themselves completely apart from the rest of the field with 4th place through to 11th, which was from Casper Rotner all the way through to Martin Kenyon. They were separated by only half a second. There were tight clusters of qualifying laps, however, up and down the field, and what it meant that every 10th, every 100th and every 1000th was absolutely vital battle to go for the ultimate qualifying time for our drivers and get themselves off to a good start. However, in the race, there was plenty of excitement, even though the circuit had a reputation for not being easy to overtake at, but our drivers decided to buck that trend, having plenty of battling throughout. We saw a big slide on lap number 1 through turn number 3 for Thomas Pugh. We thought he'd been involved in a bit of an incident with Jack Barker, given the fact the two had coming together at Suzuka only a week before in the wet conditions, but not quite. It was a big slide for Pugh, self-inflicted, and slight anti as well had a major spin on the exit of turn number 5 after contact with Casper Rotner. But then the race never truly settled down after that, because there were big incidents in the open lap. The action absolutely ran rampant, and we saw a huge battle for the overall pro win between Thomas Noakes and Harvey Wheeler, a big battle for the inter win between Mikey Stewart and Hayden Young, and that was entwined with the battle for third place in pro between Casper Rotner and Carl Roy, and there was also a great battle for 6th place in the interclass between Luke Sherlock, Jake Muttett and Harry Taverne. And also, let's not forget that freeway fight for 5th place in club between Tom Wheeler, David Young and also Stephen Wilkinson. But who exactly were our winners last time out? Well, in pro and overall, it was Harvey Wheeler, who in the end started second on the overall grid, starting the best part of what was 2.5 tenths behind Thomas Noakes, but in the race he was glued to the back of the MK Sim Sport drive from the very start, attacking throughout the entire first half of the race, but unable to find a way past. So what exactly made the difference? Well, it was on lap 21, a big technical failure that was seen that Suzuka came back again for Thomas Noakes, and just suddenly he was towed to the pit lane due to the failure of the engine of his Ferrari, and it opened up the doorway then for the young Harvey Wheeler to take his second win in the row, and his second win of the season by 10 seconds ahead of Tim Probert, and he'll be glad to have won, but understandably, I think Harvey was not glad to have won it through what was a technical issue for his main rival. He wanted to beat him on circuit, and he was definitely looking primed to go too wide towards the very end of the race. But meanwhile, in the interclass, it was Hayden Young who brought home an absolutely emphatic victory. A much long-awaited first win of the season. Indeed, it was one of the fan favourite wins of the season as well. Plenty of his supporters tuning in, and indeed, even if you weren't necessarily a big supporter of Hayden Young, you had to respect the fact that he finally took it to Mikey Stewart. And he was third in class in qualifying, 4 tenths off the pole time set by Mikey Stewart, and he admitted in his interview they had a lot more pace which he did not get to show in his qualifying laps. However, in the race, he was handed P2 on a plate, or second place on a plate on the exit of turn 5, with an incident for slight anti on the open lap, and afterwards chased down Mikey Stewart with an aggressive move on lap number 23, and I was going through the complex to Lysy, where in the end he went all in side by side for the chicane. Somebody had to back out, and it was Mikey Stewart in the end who decided to back out and go to the runoff area, and that caused him to slot in behind. And after the pit stops, well, Stewart attempted to fight back, but the intervention of Casper Brotner in the end, who was trying to run away from Kyle Roy in the battle for third place in pro, meant that Casper Brotner really was the driver who decided which way it went, and it went the way of Hayden Young, taking his first win of the season in class by 2.7 seconds, and a well-earned one at that. But meanwhile, in the club class, Jordan Maymar finally took that 4th win of the season that he's been chasing for the last few rounds, and he took class pole position by 1600ths ahead of Martin Kenyon, and in the race was very gradually able to gap away from Kenyon, with pro and inter drivers who found themselves batting away past Martin Kenyon for overall positions, causing the gap to expand at the rate of knots. And Kenyon attempted an undercut to give him clear track, but it backfired because it saw him have to make multiple overtakes on interclass drivers who had yet to pit, and it meant that Maymar was able to take his 4th win of the season by 21 seconds, although in reality the gap between the pair on pace was much smaller, but it was the undercut strategy that failed for Martin Kenyon which saw that gap become so pronounced. But of course, will there be such big gaps today? Perhaps nay, because Road Atlanta is a circuit that's very popular on the iRacing platform, and indeed in the world. It is a home, of course, the Petit Le Mans, or the 6 Hours of Road Atlanta on an annual basis, and that being a special event hosted on the iRacing service, so most not all the drivers will competed in plenty of racing at Road Atlanta, and we're expecting it to be incredibly tight. But of course, that is a good thing, because coming into how the standing stand after 8 rounds of racing, as we can see, starts from the Pro Top 12, it's Harvey Wheeler who has taken the lead for the first time this season, back-to-back wins, and of course, bad luck for his main rival, Thomas Noakes. And at 10th place last time out for Noakes, the MK Sim Sport driver, that was not representative like the 7th place at Suzuka of what he brought to the table. It should have been a podium, if not the win. But still, the Aversa Rapid by three-wheeler racing driver of Harvey Wheeler. He's got to take what he's given, and right now, could he seal the deal today? In theory, he could with a round to spare, but he would need to take the win, and he would need the results to go very much against Thomas Noakes. So therefore, we're going to keep an eye on that, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not going to say it's possible unless there is a huge chop-up of circumstances, because right now it's still wide open. But the game plan for Thomas Noakes tonight, he's got to strike back, and he's got to strike hard and fast. Carl Roy, meanwhile, he stays in the hunt as well, with that finish last time out just off of the podium in 4th place. The Axis Sim Sport with SimWorks driver closing on Noakes with the bad fortune for the MK Sim Sport driver, but the Scotsman right now definitely coming into his element as this season is going on. Tim Probert with his first second place, his best result of the season last time out at Magny-Cours. Well, he's burning up some momentum. He's chasing down that top three, and the Send It Racing driver looking very quick once again today. However, it does seem as though everyone has got his measure on pace, at least in chasing the top 5 of Pro in the practice times. Max Wheeler sits in 5th, reversed so fast by Freewheeler Racing, and it was another top 5 finish last time. He's only had a couple of those this season, but he's on 455 points, and do not count him out from the hunt for 3rd place. Fotis Catiel slips to 6th, another dismal day, and indeed a lot of disappointment for the Greek driver, and the Split Track Esports driver did look quite confident in qualifying and looked quite quick at the start of the race, but the pace went against him as the race went on. Casper Rotner brought home that podium in that brilliant back and forth battle with Carl Roy, his best result of the season at 3rd place. It moves into 7th for 336 points, as Thomas Pugh meanwhile to make a recovery drive out with his big slide through turn number 3 on the opening lap, and the Axis Sports with Sim Coach driver falling into 8th, but 9 he's still got a lot of pressure on him, not just to get back into 7th, but also that pressure from behind, because Nathan Anstis, who wasn't on the grid last time out, indeed he was away on a holiday due to personal circumstances, well, the UK SimRacing Hamilton driver will be keen to try and find his way back into 8th today and take the fight to Pugh. Archie Williams sits in 10th place there for Axis SimSports with SimWorks, and we keep an eye on him as well because he's had mixed results. However, he'll be hoping to re-find his early season form. And we do see Darren Sharples a further point behind, who always better points of the season last time out, ahead of Adam Watson, and well, as a non-start for Adam Watson at Magny-Cours, but he's back today, and right now he's currently the quickest driver of them all in qualifying. But then look into the interclass, and by comparison, Mikey Stewart leads the way, and what a lead it is, although it has been slightly slashed down to 63 points there after the win for Hayden Young and the second place finish for the Axis SimSports with Sim Coach driver. But Mikey Stewart right now, definitely the man who's in control to a degree, and in theory, all he needs to do for the remainder of the season is just finish 1 place behind Hayden Young, and he'll be very comfortably the champion. But of course, that's going to be your smart brain talking. The racer brain says you need to try and beat your rival as much as possible to try and seal the deal and make it as easy as possible. So expect Stewart to come back today fighting on all cylinders. Meanwhile, Hayden Young, well, that first win finally came, his 5th podium season. Can he make it a trio of wins to wrap up the season and give himself the best opportunity to try and take the crown? Well, the first thing is he's got to get that second win today for Send It Racing. Jack Barker, keep your eyes out for him as well, the Made for Racing driver. I caught up with him in the build-up to this round, and he said, if there's wet weather, I'm normally on course for a podium, but when it's dry weather, I'm normally struggling to try and hit a top 5. Well, to be fair, it was a 6th place last time out. He did struggle in his Aston Martin. The pace wasn't quite there, and he went for an undercut strategy, which helped him get to 6th, but he couldn't quite stand the pace to finish inside the top 5, with Cy Anthony coming charging on through, and that's why Cy Anthony is now only 26 points behind the Made for Racing driver, and the UKSimRacing Hamilton machinery definitely pushing on in the Porsche 992, with his 3rd podium of the season at 3rd place after his early instant. What a miraculous drive from him. Tom Cordy, we didn't make his way onto the grid last time out, and indeed we won't be seeing him for the remainder of the season due to personal circumstances, but he ended his season on high at Suzuka, of course, for round number 7, and therefore the Phoenix Racing driver will gradually slip down the field, but he's still got a comfortable gap there, at least at this time, of a grand total of 62 points to Jake Muttett for Phoenix Racing Blue, who had a bit of a dismal day under the French sun, and well, it was the same for Hendrik Zilke to a degree, when it could have been potentially a podium. It wasn't in the end, with Sight Anti finding his way through, and Anti going all in to take that place off the old Dudes in Cars driver. Just when Zilke thought his second podium was coming, it was not, unfortunately. Luke Sherlock, well, so it was a frustrating day for him as far as points came, when he was the one who lost out in the battle for the top 5, behind Peter Holt and also other rivals, and well, the Darkwing out of Racing Driver, he's got to be back today, because of course he'd like to make it another podium, if not another top 5. Those top 5s are quite precious for him. Pete Holt sits in 9th place there, while his best drivers of the season for Send It Racing in France went all in to bring home that top 5. And well, we can see Steve Hughes, meanwhile, on 230 points. He's still got some work to do to close down the 69-point deficit to Peter Holt. He's in 10th place at Manus Hughes for UKSimRacing Norris. Brandon Vincent Squibb, not seen on the grid since round number 3. He sits on 224 in 11th. And we do see on equal points there, Ashley Brooks, but wasn't on the grid last time out. We hope to see him back today for Axis SimSports. We then do come to the club class, and as we can see, Martin Kenyon leads the way. And well, for Kenyon, it wasn't a win last time out. The win went to Jordan Maymar, but a second place is all he needs really to wrap up the season, and he is the one out of all the championship contenders who theoretically can wrap up proceedings today, and all he needs to do is finish 9th or higher is what the mathematics we've done here in the commentary booth says, and should Kenyon do so, and it is a very healthy opportunity to do so today, given the fact we do have 12 drivers on the grid for club, as we understand on the entry list, well, Martin Kenyon will be your club champion provisionally with a round to spare. So that's all the Piztec Racing driver's got to do, and given his consistency of form right now, he's definitely earned the chance very comfortably to be able to make this happen. Grant Miller, therefore, will need a win today as much as possible, but is it a win to chase Kenyon, or is it a win to make sure he's going to be your runner-up versus Jordan Maymar, who right now still got a lot of work to do, and the non-finish at Suzuka really did curtail his aspirations of stealing away the crown, but if he can make it 2 more wins back-to-back, and should Martin Kenyon have a nightmare pair pair of rounds. You never know what can happen, to be fair. Indeed, this is giving us 2007 Formula 1 Championship vibes when Lewis Hamilton seems set for the maiden crown, his maiden season, only for it to fall away. But let's not say that's going to happen to Kenyon, but that can happen. That's an example, and that's what Jordan Maymar will be tunneling into. He just needs to win, and it's up to everyone else as to what they do and which way the fortunes go. But behind the SimCast Racing dry, it's Tom Wheeler for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing. He's moved into 4th place there, still ahead of Alexander Wingmart with a top 5 finish last time out. And indeed, the older member of the Wheeler family, his son Harvey racing, well, not his son Harvey, it is his nephew Harvey. I always get them all mixed up, Tom, Max and Harvey. But right now, Tom Wheeler continues to look very consistent in 4th, but he has lost that third by a single point to Maymar, and he'll perhaps be hoping to get it back. If not, at least make sure Alexander Wingmart does not get close enough. Wingmart last time out, not having the most impressive performances, but he joined us for a post-round interview, and we had a good chat with him about his performance at Magny-Cours. For Beta Ross, he sits in 5th place on 433 points. He is 8 ahead of Stephen Wilkinson, who's holding on comfortably into 6th place, although finds himself in a growing battle with David Young for that 6th place spot as the pair fight over the remaining trophies. However, do not rule out Jordan Butler with his 4th place finish last time out. He's moving closer to Young and Wilkinson. Could we see a freeway fight between them today? And James Conley is the best part there of only a further 42 points behind in 9th place for UKSimRacing Norris. But then we can see from the Spectre Racing and UKSimRacing Norris drivers, it's David Pilcher for SimCast Racing UK. Was on the grid last time out. We hope to see him back today. He's in 10th on 294 points, only 2 ahead of Matthew Massey, who did not start the race at Magny-Cours, and it was also non-start for Ryan Clark, who sits in 12th. But what about our Teams Championship, I hear you ask? Well, here we can see in the Teams Championship, it's Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing who lead the way, and right now only by a grand total 105 points over Phoenix Racing Red. It's very tight between our leading pair. However, do not count out Send It Racing, not Axis in Sports with SimCoach or SimCast Racing UK. The big theme is right now it's still wide open in the Teams Championship and it's anybody's game to play. And well, you have a sizable gap meanwhile between 5th and 6th to the tune of 160 points or so. And Axis in Sports with SimWorks sits in that 6th place spot, only 13 points ahead of Pistep Racing, but only a point further behind it is UKSimRacing Hamilton. And then MK SimSport have slipped to 9th with their misfortune last time out, but can they resuscitate their form before they slip further back to Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing? And meanwhile, 11th place, it's Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia who've gone from 14th to 11th, and it was a good round for the team last time out. Moons within 54 points of the top 10. But they have UKSimRacing Norris only 15 points behind. So that's how the team stand after a grand total of 8 rounds racing. But will they be that way after our 9th round, particularly given the fact we have a brand new leader today, of course, in the Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing? Well, we'll have to see. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's not tarry any further as we do now talk about our host circuit for today. Here's, of course, the full course layout of Road Atlanta, located near the town of Brazelton in Hall County of the US state of Georgia. 2.54 miles in length or 4.08 kilometers, but the number of corners, regardless of the units used for distance, 12 corners in total, that never changes. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. However, whilst we could talk you through a track map, we're instead going to go straight back to circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, because I think it's better to speak with what is words on a circuit rather than just the visual pictures there. So we head on back, and as we do, well, how are drivers getting on right now in this qualifying session? Well, as we do look to Adam Watson with 11 minutes to go. This qualifying session definitely comes up very quickly. Watson right now, currently the quickest driver out there as he makes his way down the back straight in his McLaren 720S Evo. A very quick car, no doubt about it. Now, as we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, we do say hello to Vault9 there. It says, good noon from the West Coast. I just came back from watching IndyCar racing. Well, the perfect way to see yourself into the afternoon, good sir. I'm very happy to have you tuning in. We also do say hello there to Anstis96, who says good evening, and good evening to you, Nathan. I hope you're doing well. Indeed, that is the Nathan Anstis there. And we also do say hello to Krista Halzai. Good evening to you, Krista. If there's one race I'd love to drive, it would be this one. And indeed, we do miss seeing it out to the circuit. And well as we do see our drivers make a way around right now, I do get the same vibe as yourself, Krista, which is that I want to be out there as much as I'm in this commentary booth. But indeed, I love being in the commentary booth as much as being out to the circuit, and therefore I'm spoiled for choice. I can't have it both ways. I can't have my cake and eat it, as they would say. And we also say hello to Phillips91 there, who'll be give a wave, and Kenyon M, that's Martin Kenyon there, says, I'm not sure if I can wrap it up tonight. I would need to be 150 points clear, and as we understand it, should we take the 9th place, it would effectively move him into what would be that position, although let's just double check that. And indeed, with Grant Miller on 614 points coming into this round, we're just going to cross check that one more time to make sure. Indeed, all Martin Kenyon needs to do today is finish 9th or higher, and he will be on 768 points. And in fact, no, that's not going to be enough to do it there, ladies and gentlemen. We've done some very poor mathematics. We do apologise. I think there's been a bit of a miscalculation and we've skipped around. So in fact, if we wait to wrap it up, Well, let's work that out. So we have misinformed already. We do apologise for the misinformation. He cannot wrap it up today, and well, that is foggy math brain there, and well, we've got to get used to that. It's not drop rounds to the end of the season. That's what's throwing off their calculator, and we do apologise. So in fact, nobody can really wrap it up today, even unless it is a hugely dismal day of results for a driver where it's a non-finish. Then suddenly we could see things change. So apologies there. So it does mean that Martin Kenya is going to have to put a bit more work in than we suspected, as we do see Tim Probert parking up. And meanwhile, Mikey Stewart makes his way onwards. He's currently the fastest of your inter-drivers out there as he makes his way on down. As the Axis Simsports with SimCoach driver makes his way down towards turn number 10. Well, we'll get an on-board lap with one or two of our drivers very shortly, because it is definitely one of those circuits where you want an on-board lap to really see what it's all about. As they come charging on around, well, meanwhile, we do wait for that on-board lap, and in fact, it will be Thomas Pugh, teammate there to Mikey Stewart, who's going to give it to us. And here he comes to the final corner, and onto the lap he goes. Making his way across that timeline. Currently fifth fastest, does improve to a 17.935, but can he go quicker? Into turn one, braking about 100 centimetres from corner apex, train off the brakes from 6th gear to 4th gear. Now up the hill, over the crest, in towards turn number 2, and onto the brakes he goes at the apex to 2 to set up his line through turn number 3. Now downhill through turn number 4, keep it nice and tight to left as much as possible. So now you've got to open up the S's, the runner corners that have no numbers, from right into left, into right, and braking for the final part of the S's to go into left-hander at turn number 5. And here, run as wide as you dare, making sure to keep the throttle absolutely pinned, as well as the rear of the car will go round, and now in towards the first of the two 90-degree right-handers. Turn number 6, as he makes his way into the braking zone, as he comes on through, while overlay there doing some magic in the background. Now through turn number 7, understeers a little bit wide, he brakes a bit too late there, does Thomas Pugh, and well, that mistake's going to prove costly, in fact, to his lap, when he was improving already. His first sector was looking as good as his previous first sector best, but meanwhile, Thomas Pugh now's got a bit more work to do as he powers wound down, and well, in his wonderful Mercedes, he's going to come in towards turn number 10. With the kinks on the straight there, in turns 8 to 9, onto the brakes he goes. The 150-metre board coming all the way down to second gear, left into right, and he comes out to the right-hander and over the crest. Well, Thomas Pugh right now clears turn number 11 and in towards turn number 12, completely flat out here. And well, that mistake through turn number 7, definitely scuppering the lap, and he does improve in the final sector. And well, does he find any more time? The answer is no, an 18.579, so therefore he's got more work to do. But Thomas Pugh showing the fact he has got time out there, he just needs to glue the lap together. But as meanwhile, Adam Watson going even quicker still, and Watson right now on pole on a 17.28. That is almost 3 tenths quicker than what Thomas Noakes is now to achieve. And with the MK Simsport driver ahead of Harvey Wheeler. And right now that gap between the two of them, that's part of 800. So therefore Harvey Wheeler on a little bit of a back foot. However, 800s around here can be found very quickly. It's going to be very tight to qualifying margins. Unless your name's Adam Watson, then you seem to be in a world of your own. But as Wheeler rolls his way down the hill, right now, the 334 driver, he needs to beat Noakes if he wants to feel very secure going into the season finale. But if he wants to take his time with things, he just needs to finish one place behind. And then he still will be safe to finish one place behind going into the finale. Oh, that goes round in the rear of the picture. That is the car of Ryan Littlemore going for a spin. That's the other Verso Rapid car by Freewheeler Racing. And well, the lowest place drivers who have set a time so far. But meanwhile, as we look further down the order, of course, Mikey Stewart, your leading into driver in this qualifying session this time. And well, he is a grand total of only 800 quicker than Hayden Young, who is currently on an outlap in his Porsche 992, a very happy car, and indeed very happy send it racing drive right now, but he won't be happy to see these behind Stewart. He'll need to find a bit more time. And meanwhile, the third fastest Inter is Cy Anthony for UKSimRacing Hamilton, and the Porsche 992 his own. And well, the gap between himself and Young is 1.2 tenths, and it's a further 800, so essentially 2 tenths between Cy Anthony and Mikey Stewart, as Matthew Croft jumps up to 9th place on a 17.991. That was off camera, but he's found a bit more time. Jack Barker now jumps up to 3rd place in the interclass, and well, Barker has historically gone quite well here at Road Atlanta. This has been a circuit which I think was a bit of a bogey for him in his initial league racing days, but he's gradually got to grips with it, and that Aston Martin V8 Vantage as well. Well, as we said earlier on, he's only had podiums in mixed conditions races this season, or his best results have come from those. In much more stable conditions today, can he potentially make it a podium? Well, if he could, he'd definitely be breaking what would seem to be his run of form, and he'd be improving it somewhat, and he'd be going back into that fight for what would be 3rd place. Besides Anthony's even gaining major ground with him, but Barker suddenly would reopen that ground going into the season finale. But meanwhile, in club, it's currently Grant Miller who's the fastest of everybody in club class, and the Phoenix Racing red driver, 17th overall. Well, that translates into is the fact he's currently ahead of Matthew Massey, who's the 2nd fastest, and the gap between the two of them a grand total of just over 0.2 of a second. That's impressive for Miller. Could this be the day we finally takes his first win of the season? Well, he's got some work to do. Matthew Massey currently the second fastest of Spectre Racing, but he's not going any further. He's decided to stay in the pit lane, and Martin Kenyon the same. He's currently a grand total of 700ths behind, if so. And, well, the pit stop racing driver just waiting out for the qualifying session to end. I think he feels happy with what he's done. And sometimes that's what you need to do, is once you've hit the lap you want, you just simply park up. But meanwhile, Tom Wheeler is going to park up in the grass down the exit of 1 and tow back to the pit lane. And, well, his qualifying session may not be done, but he's definitely done with that set of tyres and the condition of that car. So he's going to go back out there once again. Meanwhile, flash of the headlights there from Ryan Clark. Not too happy about the fact he's got into driver in front of him. And that is the Mercedes AMG, not of Hendrik Zilker that's catching up. But meanwhile, who exactly was that then, I hear you ask? Well, we're trying to find out. And, well, it was Mercedes in front of him. I'm trying to see who it was. I think it was Matthew Croft, in fact, there. And, well, Crofton did get out the way as he goes on to another lap. But I understand Ryan Clark, I think, feels like there was a lot of time out there and was trying to make it very clear he was going quicker. It's a 19.010, but I think Clark's got even more time. But 3 minutes left on the clock, and, well, let's bring you another on-board lap, ladies and gentlemen. And this time, we're going for one in the Porsche 9-2 with Nathan Anstis as he comes on around to a flying lap. To make his way across the timeline in 5th gear up towards 6th very shortly, and as he does so, looking to his left hand side for his brake marker. It's the end of the barrier, which is where you look for the brakes, and he comes down towards 4th gear out of turn 1 in towards turns 2 and 3. Car on his right, he'll have a narrower line there, and that causes him to understeer into 3 under braking. And for Anstis, the car literally shaking while the pace down to go left to go right. Takes a lot of curb there through turn number 4. It's a bit of a scrappy start to lap, but can he make up for it now through the S's and the remainder? We're going through the S's Stevens in towards turn number 5. He's not going to back out, he's in it all the way to the end. And Anstis there getting a very tight exit line out of turn number 5, which you can do, to be fair. It can be just as quick as a wide line because you're not bumping over the exit curb. And in towards 90 right at turn number 6 and up towards turn number 7. Anstis running a little bit wide there. This lap right now definitely looking to be not his cleanest lap as he understeers wide there out to the final quarter. And he's in the draft now of a McLaren in front of him, but this is not going to help him because he's just invalidated lap effectively going out of turn number 7 like that. Or at least we would think he's perhaps put a wheel wide enough to invalidate it. But we will find out the finish line. He hasn't backed off, however, so he's still going for this is Anstis, and I think he's going to try and use the toe of that McLaren that steps aside, braking at 163 miles an hour down towards only an apex speed of 67 miles an hour there through 10A as he comes now over the rise right now. With Nathan Anstis absolutely flying as best he possibly can in towards the final corner he goes. And what's it going to be here? Well, it's not been improved across all the sectors, even with that toe. And Anstis there, well, the lap was valid. It did count. It was an 18.979. However, it was 6/10 off his best, and I think it was all that opening sector going wrong that really cost him the time, plus also a bit of a scrappy at turn number 7 where he went too wide. 1.5 minutes left to go right now. Can anybody else find a bit more time? Well, Mikey Stewart's going to go for one last tour of the circuit, see what he can find out there. And as they roar the way onwards, and Martin King says, can you tell I've been on holiday and not done any practice this week? And, well, the answer is, well, if that's a sign of not doing too much practice and starting 3rd in club, provisionally subject to anyone improving, Martin, well, to be fair, that is still very impressive. And I hope you had a good holiday to give yourself some rest, because sometimes taking a rest and not putting in too much practice can just be as powerful as turning hundreds of laps. As Stewart makes his way onwards right now. Well, a decent opening sector there, not a personal best, still a bit more to go as he comes on through the corner. And right now the access into what with Sim Coach driver, well, he's definitely trying to see this way on around, but 233 definitely heading on in the BMW. And right now for Stewart, he's looking relatively safe to Hayden Young. The gap still between the two of them 800ths of a second. The hundreds can be found very quickly as Cy Anthony improves to 15. Hendrik Zilker improves meanwhile on an 18.344, but that does not move him up from 19. It keeps him there. And it moves him a couple of thousandths ahead of Nathan Anstis, or further ahead we should say. Meanwhile, Luke Sherlock heads towards the timeline, the Darkwing Racing Machine, the purple livery car, and as he comes across and does not improve by looks of things, he stays in 8th place in Inter, but he's got one more lap to go. James Conley comes over the hill. Will he be able to go into one more lap? The answer is yes, he will in the 146. And the Ferrari driver comes around right now, and as he does so, running the numbers 4 and 6, or 46 as part of his door number there, in tribute to Valentino Rossi, the doctor of motorcycle racing, of course, one of the most decorated drivers, and now a GT3 racing driver in the GT World Challenge Europe Series. And James Conley not happy at that lap at all. Parks up and says, I can't go any quicker. Meanwhile, Harvey Wheeler across the line. It's a 17.618. It is a personal best for the day in qualifying, but the three-wheeler racing driver does not go any faster for Verso Fast, and he stays where he is. Meanwhile, Adam Watson seems to be in absolute control of this as Alexander Vingmark has crossed the line. He stays in 27th. That was a 19.1 versus his previous person 18.8. And Sight Ansley, meanwhile, coming on through. And the UKSimRacing Hamilton driver, what can he do this time? It was the personal best in sectors 2 and 4. Is it enough? Yes, it is. It jumps into 13th, and it's an 18.128. That puts him literally on the heels of none other than Hayden Young, only by 23 thousandths of a second. And Jack Barker is forced back to 4th place, just ahead of Jake Muttit by 200. And Hendrik Zilker's not too far away, as we do see Nathan Anstis cross line. Adam Watson will come through. He'll be the last driver to put a lap together, and he will be the very first of them to put the best lap together. Well, 17.282, but it will not be that lap. And Adam Watson doing a phenomenal job in qualifying, taking pole position by 2 tenths in the end. Thomas Noakes did find the best part of what was 700ths out there from the last time we looked, but the MK Sim Sport drive will be second to Watson. And it'll be Harvey Wheeler and Tim Probert on that second row. It's an all-pro top 4, and you have to go all the way back to 10th place to find your interpole sitter, Mikey Stewart, who in the end puts Max Wheeler between himself and Hayden Young, the second of the inter drives, and Sight Ansley was able to squeeze in 13th, third in the inter class, with Jack Barker in 16th, 4th of Inters, just ahead of Jake Muttit. And then just behind Muttit, from the Phoenix Racing Blue Dryer to Phoenix Racing Red Machinery, it's going to be the two McLarens together. And on that 9th row, it will be Muttit and Grant Miller, the club pole sitter. And Miller, a very impressive pole lap there, ahead of Matthew Massey by just over 2 tenths, 2.1 tenths to be a bit more precise. And, well, Matthew Massey for Spectre Racing and one of his best qualifying points of the season, ahead of Martin Kenyon, the Pit Step Racing driver, who will join him towards what will be the 11th row of the grid. And then it was Stephen Wilkinson, who did very well to go 4th there, ahead of Jordan Butler. And meanwhile, unfortunately, we do not have Jordan Maymar today. So, therefore, Jordan Maymar's campaign to try and steal away the crown, if not second place, has come to a halt for this season, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, we'll see him back out there for the season finale, but he's not here for this round. But meanwhile, now we go into the 5-minute warm-up period. And as all our drivers now have the opportunity here to cool, calm them down, or get themselves set, we say hello to Luke Sherlock there in the YouTube chat, who says, such poor qualifying for me, with a bit of an unhappy face there. And, well, Luke, may not have been your best qualifying points of the season. However, turn that frown upside down into a smile, good sir, because I know you, and I know that in rounds in the past, particularly if my memory serves me correctly, in season, I want to say, season 16 of the series, you had one of the most impressive ratios of what was converting difficult qualifying performances into great results, including multiple podiums that season. Also, I think there was a win in there, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering the right season, because it was that incredible 4-way fight for the title that literally came down to what was the slenderest of margins, and in the end it went the way of the Berry machine. Edward Berry, Mr. Strawberry, that was on the side of the car, and I'll tell you one thing, it was an absolute ripe lead battle for the pickings. But still, as we make our way through this warm-up session, what can we expect here? How important has qualifying just been? How difficult is it to overtake here? Road Atlanta is a very odd one when it comes to overtaking, because you have got a very wide racing surface. However, the thing about this lap is it's a very quick lap, and it is an aero-dependent lap at that. And setup-wise, you will expect most drivers and teams will go for what will be high downforce setup. Some will take a couple of clicks of rear wing off of the car to give themselves a straight line speed advantage for the back straight, going all the way from turn 7 down towards turn number 10. But beyond that, you can imagine being the lead car in a group is going to be highly beneficial. But if you can beat a rival on the brakes, you can be quicker through the corners. You can go for a move at most places on the lap. The only place that's not recommended is through the S's, because there's only really one line through there, and going too wide requires both you and your rival both to respect each other and essentially both back off to the best part of about 20 miles an hour. If you don't, it can lead to absolute curtains between the two of you, and suddenly you'll find yourselves both in the stewarding room afterwards being asked, well, who decided not to back out? But meanwhile, as Darren Sharp's mates swam down through the aforementioned S's section, beyond that, overtaking is possible, but it's the game of chasing another car that's the hardest part around here because of the slipstream and the dirty air. So it does mean overtaking is possible when you get close enough and you're brave enough on the brakes. But alternatively, strategy can be just as powerful. Now, it is quite a short pit lane here, so it does mean the overall end-to-end pit time is going to be shorter at most circuits. You really need to be quick and in and out. Fuel saving will be highly valuable if you find yourself in a pack. and therefore a bit of fuel saving and a very efficient pit stop, you can suddenly make up multiple places. As we do see Steve Hobbs in the Sim Coach machine making his way on down. That's the iconic red livery from the team, managed by Andy Dawson. And Dawson having previously raced in our Thursday GT3 Championship with SimRacing International. As far as my memory serves, he never has raced in the UKSimRacing Sunday series, but to be fair, he'll be keeping a good eye on his drivers. From Sim Coach, they make the way around and wish them all the best. But Steve Hobbs makes his way on around there. Well, he does set a representative time in this practice warm-up session of a 19.81, however, 1.831, but however, he will not be using that lap as any indicator of what's to come, because of course, we've got to go racing very soon, ladies and gentlemen. That's where the laps will need to be turned in full anger. As he makes his way on down the hill, well, the 316 driver absolutely set and ready to go, as they all are. Nathan Anstey's putting a few more laps in, a bit of bobbing and weaving there from side to side, and trying to get a bit more tyre temperature. It's been great to see. We do have the best part of 35 drivers made the journey to the USA today. This always is a really popular circuit. It always brings out a lot of drivers. This makes his way on around. So overtaking will be challenging here, but not impossible. A good strategy could be highly invaluable, so qualifying has had some relative importance. But in amongst it all, we do have our big names in each of our classes in amongst each other. In club, Grant Miller on that pole position. He was able to find it ahead of Matthew Massey and also Martin Kenyon. And meanwhile, in the IMS class, we've seen Mikey Stewart just outpace Hayden Young to a degree, with Cy Anstey and Jack Barker in the mix, and Jake Muttett for that top 5. And in the pro class, well, we have seen a absolutely ludicrous speed being shown by Adam Watson for overall pro pole. But behind, it's the usual suspects of what is none other than Thomas Noakes and Harvey Wheeler right up there. Well, Harvey Wheeler, he wants to make sure he finishes ahead of Noakes. That's got to be his game plan. Meanwhile, for Noakes, he needs to beat Wheeler and he needs to take that win. And ideally, have Wheeler finish a couple of places behind to level the playing field going into the season finale. But for Noakes, and I'm sure the team will be looking over every aspect of the car right now in the pit lane and to see whether it's all okay. And here is another Ferrari 296, not Noakes' Ferrari, it's the one of Carl Roy. But just to give you an example of that Ferrari that's out there, and well, Thomas Noakes' team for MK Simsport will literally be picking apart the car and looking it over to go. Nothing can break on its time, surely, because he will not want a third technical issue midway through the race. That would be the equivalent of needing to buy multiple lottery tickets. But meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, as the clock goes to 0 on this warm-up practice session, well, that can only mean one thing is to come. As the sun shines here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, it is time for round number 9. It is time to head to the grid for this iteration of the Sunday GT3 Championship Season 18, brought to you on iRacing by UKSimRacing. So as our drivers make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for our penultimate round of the season and the second of our 3 showdown rounds. A reminder, 50% more points are available here today for every finishing position. And on pole position, looking to score the grand old 150 in the pro class, it is going to be Adam Watson for Altitude 3M Esports for a highly impressive pole lap, 2 attempts quicker than MK Simsports' Thomas Noakes. Then we do have Harvey Wheeler starting third there for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing, but goodness me, was it close between him and Noakes? And then it was only 1.2 tenths. And a further 900ths behind, starting fourth, Tim Probert, who's really come alive for Send It Racing, and could he potentially get himself onto the podium again today? Steve Hobbs starts in 5th place for Sim Coach. A season best qualifying performance there for the McLaren driver. What can he do in the 316? Can he get in amongst the top 4? Thomas Pugh joins him on that third row for Axis Simsports with Sim Coach. And will Thomas Pugh understand he will want to try and get the upper hand on the mainstream Sim Coach team? But meanwhile behind, Archie Williams, Axis Simsports with SimWorks, the 393 driver from Australia. Well, he may be on the other side of the world in his rig, but I can tell you one thing right now, he's definitely on the same point of the world as the rest of these drivers when it comes to pace. And, well, he's had a Kyle Roy there for Axis Simsports with SimWorks, and the Scotsman, meanwhile, a grand total of only what was 14,000 behind, starting in that 7th place, the 8th place spot. Then we do see, starting in 9th there, Matthew Croft for Axis Simsport Bandits, and Mikey Stewart will start the day in 10th place for Axis Simsports with SimCoach as your inter-pole sitter. Outside the top 10, there's only one inter-driver in otherwise an all-pro top 10. It is the pro of Max Wheeler, and then for their best of the rest, Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing. Hayden Young begins the day for Send It Racing in 12th place, 8 attempts off the overall pole time, but to be fair, only a couple of attempts away, if that, from Stewart. In fact, it wasn't even an attempt, it was for hundredths, and therefore for Hayden Young, he knows he's got to get a good start here if he wants to chase down Stewart and make it back-to-back wins. Cy Anstey, a very late lap put together for the UKSimRacing Hamilton drive, but a vital one, moved him up to 13th. He's third in the interclass. Ahead of Casper Brotner, 14th for Old Dudes and Cars Vintage. And then we do see Darren Sharp, who's starting 15th for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia, ahead of Jack Barker for Made for Racing. who was just able to outpace by Jake Muttitt by 200s. The Phoenix Racing Blue drives in the company of his fellow Phoenix Racing Red machinery of Grant Miller. The McLaren drives locking out that 9th row, and Miller, your club pole sitter. Well done to Grant for that. It's rare he's had a club pole this season. When he gets them, however, they're highly cherished. And then we do see Hendrik Silke starting 19th for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia ahead of Nathan Anstis for UKSimRacing Hamilton. That's going to be your top 20. Nathan Anstis has got some work to do from that 10th row of the grid. On the 11th row, Matthew Massey, second of your club drivers, just ahead of Martin Kenyon for Pit Step Racing. The Spectre Racing driver there with a commendable lap, but can he beat Kenyon to the punch? Can he chase down Miller? Can Kenyon make his way ahead and make the championship campaign very comfortable for himself at Donington? We'll have to see. Pete Holt begins the day 23rd for Sendit Racing Bulls ahead of Stephen Wilkinson for Simcast Racing UK. His best qualifying lap of the season in terms of his gap ratio to the pole positioning club, and he starts 4th in class ahead of Jordan Butler for Spectre Racing Feet Simworks. Then we do have Luke Sherlock with a weak qualifying performance, but watch out for him in the race for Darkwing Racing 26th ahead of Alexander Vingmart for Beta Frost there. He's joined on the 14th row of the grid by Versa Rapid by Freewheeler Racing's Tom Wheeler. He spent a lot of time in the grass in qualifying. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. And then we do see Ryan Clark starting 29th for Spectre Racing ahead of David Pilcher, who completes the top 30 for Simcast Racing UK. And outside the top 30, 31st on the grid, James Conley for UKSimRacing Norris ahead of Ryan Littleworth for Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing. Derry Young begins this one in 33rd, the privateer, ahead of John Harley for Spectre Racing Feet Murby. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be your 34-car grid. They're all absolutely itching to go. We're waiting for them to get going. And as Adam Watson leads the field up out to the chicane and over the rise of turn 11, well, that means we're only one corner away from going green for the 9th time this season. It's over to Adam Watson to take us away. And it's lights out, away we go for 60 minutes of racing action here at Road Atlanta as Watson goes green, green, green. As they roar the way towards turn 1, a good start from Watson, Noakes and Probert meanwhile together with Harvey Wheeler side by side with Probert in towards turn 1. He clears him, however, does Probert, so Wheeler drops to 4th place. Rest of the field now comes up the hill. Martin Kenyon side by side here with none other than Matthew Massey. In fact, got ahead there coming through the corner. As he does so, we've had a bit of an off for Ryan Littleworth. He goes all in on the brakes then, hits in the rear, I do believe, of Ryan Clark. And it gets a bit messy there, but they're all able to get the brakes on James Conley and also John Harley and Derek Young all doing very well to avoid the wayward car Ryan Clark. So it's gone wrong for Clark. We'll get a replay of that shortly, but meanwhile the rest of the field makes way out the Essen up towards the 90 right. And as they do, Harvey Wheeler back on the inside here versus Probert goes all in here versus Rapid by Freewheeler Racing driver. He's going to absolutely attack here straight away on the inside again in towards turn number 7, and Ryan has 2 wide here. What's going to be quick on the accelerator? The both turbo supplemented those V8, where it be the Nissan inspired V8 in the McLaren, alternatively there the Mercedes V8 in the Aston Martin. But here they go. Meanwhile, it looks like Thomas Noakes, they're trying to give the toe to his rival of what is Tim Probert there to force Harvey Wheeler backwards. Well, that's tactical for the MK Simsport drive, but you know why he's got to do it. Now as they come down to the braking zone, top 5 come through cleanly. Meanwhile, Kyle Roy, Steve Hobbs, side by side here in the Simcoach drive, elbowed out slightly, although Roy, to be fair, given as good as being given by Hobbs. They're racing fairly those two, and as they make their way over the hill, Mikey Stewart being queued up here, but look at Hayden Young, look at it, 3 wide behind. As they come toward the end of the open lap, with Young under pressure on Croft and Brotner. Croft making the move on the inside there, but Carr coming out now to make it 3 wide behind. Max Whelan, Sight and Anthony there together. They're 2 wide as they make their way towards turn number 1 and heading up the hill. It's going to be Croft and Brotner 2 wide still. Brotner goes a bit wide. Sight, Anthony, Max Whelan now go 3 wide. Here they go onto the brakes. Wheeler goes. He doesn't want any part of that. He does not want to be squeezed in the middle of the 2 of them and backs out there. Smart move from Max Wheeler. That could have been absolutely fatal to his race, and then he decided not to cause a freeway collision by essentially being pincered by the 2 cars on either side of him. That was the reverse Moses manoeuvre there, but Max Wheeler wanted that to happen. His rivals didn't force it on him. But meanwhile, Grant Miller, club leader, he's been able to pull away to a degree, but we come away from him for a second because Hayden Young and Mikey Stewart side by side here. Mikey Stewart on the inside defending versus Young. Young trying to go all the way around the outside through turn 6 and 7, and there is Matthew Croft trying to force a move in turn it, trying to help out his teammate. Ranks his towards they make the way onwards, and Croft right now poking, thrusting, doing anything he can to try and find a way through. But Hayden Young's Porsche, look at the speed on that Porsche as he's going to use the side draft there to get a nose ahead. Then it's a car ahead as they make the way down, and what a run here from Hayden Young. That's going to put him into lead, into glass, but Stewart says, right, can I go for a move and return? The answer is no, but in front, Hobbs still fighting Archie Williams. Well, now that Carl Roy's gotten through, Steve Hobbs having to go even more defensive as all the places seem to be slipping away from him. Well, wherever the pace came in qualifying, it's not in that car right now, but perhaps he's waiting for the fuel to come down. But what an opening pair of laps it has been. We've still got plenty more to come. Further back, let's not forget we've got drivers outside the top 20. We've got Matthew Massey and Peter Holt fighting each other. Martin Kenyon got ahead of Massey through turn number 1, and now Holt's trying to get ahead for what will be 23rd overall. Up the inside he goes. Smooth move, and Massey does not fight it too hard. Alexander Wingmark, where has he come from? From 6th to 4th in the club class in the opening couple of laps. It's been a really good start for the Bates-Ross Norwegian driver, but behind, that's too wide. Wilkinson and Tom Wheeler, and Wheeler tries to go all the way around the outside there at turn number 2 into 3. You don't do that. You can see why now, because there's Jordan Butler right at his heels as they make their way through the S's. Very firm defence there for Stephen Wilkinson. He stuck to his guns, and he knew if he had that inside line, there was no way Wheeler could get through. And now Jordan Butler thinking about us and thinking, well, if Tom's going to try moves like that, then surely I've got to be ready to pounce on him. We have a yellow flag for James Connolly. That's due to track limit, so he's picked up a slowdown penalty that he served. I suspect he's cut the corner. Turn number 3 has been, well, diving up the inside there. That's going to be Jordan Butler going all in versus Tom Wheeler. Does he get the move done for 6th place in class? Well, right now it's going to be a drag race here between two naturally aspirated V8 machines. 6.3 litres in the Mercedes, 5 litres in that Coyote V8, and we briefly lose Wheeler to the ether, and he comes back there. Internet connectivity being in and out for the driver, and as he comes on down, well, you can see that Mercedes of Jordan Butler just able to outpace the Mustang. That Mustang just has not got the legs right now, and I wonder just how much wing they have put on it for three-wheeler racing with Reverso Rapid. I suspect they put all the wing on that car to get it through the corners. But meanwhile, James Connolly attacking Brian Littlebore still to come over the rise, and here he looks up the inside, trying to take another place here as they go too wide in towards turn 12. But in the end, it's all for naught. Connolly has to back out there, and only would be squeezed on the nose, and that would not work out. But meanwhile, we come back to the fight for third. It's still Noakes versus Wheeler. Proban has got ahead of Noakes. We need to get a replay of that. And as they're coming out the corner right now, Wheeler so close as we ride on board the dashboard here. Noakes is struggling right now, it would seem, at least what the narrative would tell us here. It could be a completely different reason as to why he's fallen back to third, but Harvey Wheeler is trying to make the haste here. He wants to get ahead of Noakes where he can. Remember, Noakes needs to beat Wheeler today in order to be able to close that gap down. Ideally, he needs to beat him by several places in order to level the playing field going into the finale. At least 3 places would be the difference to help square things up. So Harvey Wheeler right now being glued to the back of Noakes in 4th versus 3rd place. This is actually not a bad thing for the British driver. Going to wait and see what's to come. It's 1.7 seconds behind, and now 1.5 with the fighting. It's Thomas Pugh running in 5th place, breaking away from Kyle Roy quite quickly at the moment, feeling safe. Darren Sharples and Jack Barker, these two have raced in the same class for several seasons in the past. Well, they're going to go too wide into the braking zone. As we can see, Max Wheeler up the inside, Casper Brotner, and Sharples is going to go outside to inside versus Barker. Barker right now does not want to give up here, and Jack, to be fair, ran everything, but that's 3 wide over the hill. My goodness, and in the end, Nathan Anstice is going to give you a heart attack when he keeps trying to do that. He backed out immediately over 11, realising 3 into the final corner does not go. 2 at most, and right now Barker and Sharples still side by side, and Barker defending around the outside. He's got so much confidence in that Aston Martin, Jack Barker, and right now Darren Sharples is probably thinking, where on earth has he got that grip from? And well, your guess is as good as mine, I can tell you that, but right now Jack Barker is refusing to give in, and credit to him, he's fighting for overall 15th place, and he doesn't want to lose sight of Anthony Stewart or Young further up the road in the interclass. He's trying to keep everyone else behind him, but he is causing a split in the field as a result. Meanwhile, Martin Kenyon, he gets onto the back of the splitting field now, indeed this second pack, and well, Hendrik Zilk and Jake Muttett in front of him, and then it's Grant Miller, the club leader, and for Grant Miller, this is not where you want to be this early on, which is into a long queue of pros and into drivers, with suddenly all your progress and your ability to break away from Martin Kenyon, the championship leader who you need to beat today. Well, that is going to be a gap that is coming down rather rapidly. Now, meanwhile, whilst this is happening, where are we with Steve Hobbs and Archie Williams? Well, the answer is here we are, coming down the hill in towards the chicane. As they do, Hobbs on the inside, Williams on the outside. Williams going outside to inside now, through to 9 and 10B, and as he comes up the hill here, what's Steve Hobbs got? He's got understeer, he's got snap understeer at that, and as a result, that is going to enable Archie Williams to get through. Meanwhile, down the start finish straight, there's elbows out between the two, and that's Noakes versus Wheeler Wheeler on the inside, they got the hill, they touch again, and Thomas Noakes is slightly pushed wide as he heads up the hill. Harvey Wheeler immediately backs off, he gives the place back there. That is Germany racing, but understand me, in the end, Noakes can't get the car to stop in time, but Wheeler wants to give the place back. Here comes Thomas Pugh, meanwhile, whilst Wheeler is trying to be an absolute gentleman racer, the youngster. Will Thomas Pugh squeeze his way through? I suspect that Wheeler will, what he'll do potentially is let Pugh go, and then let Noakes past him as well, as I'm fumbled my words, but goodness me, what a battle it was between the two of them, and where in the end it was contact between them on the start finish straight, it's contact for return number 1, and will they settle down for now? But I suspect if Wheeler gets a chance to, he will give the place back to Noakes, given he was trying to do that when it did go wrong going up into turn number 2, but now that Pugh's between the two of them, it adds a complication. But whilst they try to sort it out here, high speed adjustment between all these drivers. Hayden Young, your leader in Interclass. It's got Matthew Croft for Coast Company, and then we have Mikey Stewart and Slight Anthony there. And going onwards right now with Slight Anthony, definitely the danger man here to both Stewart and Young. Remember, Slight Anthony fourth in the championship, chasing after Jack Barker for that third place. So right now, he really can afford to be a little bit of an unknown in this battle compared to the rest of them as he makes his way through the chicane. And he will just want the win here today to add to his previous win of the season. And as he comes over the rise, well, strategy could be a key part. He can do a lot of fuel saving, as can Mikey Stewart. Hayden Young, meanwhile, may not have that luxury by comparison as they go on to lap number 7. But as they do, Anthony now looking up the inside, looks once, thinks about it twice, but he won't think about it thrice there as they go up the hill and stays behind for now, but definitely itching for that potential move when he can. Now Nathan Anstis, meanwhile, has found his way up in the 16th ahead of Jack Barker, and Darren Shelvers did clear Barker off camera, so the pros have cleared the inter driver, but Barker right now tucks onto the back of Anstis and will try to use him as a proverbial pace car for at least the next few bits of the race to save some fuel and some tyre life if he can. Now, behind them, in front of them, Carl Roy and Thomas Noakes fighting. In fact, Roy's just got ahead of Noakes, so that's a change of position. We've also got side by side here between Mikey Stewart and Max Wheeler. Wheeler trying to go round the outside to get the move done. He will. So Mikey Stewart slips down the order. Slight Anti's actually found his way past as well off camera. So that's happened on the exit of the S's. We suspect that Mikey Stewart's had a bit of a slide loose potentially. And amongst all of that, Peter Holt goes up the inside there of Martin Kenyon for 20 seconds. So it's all chop and change between drivers of different classes. But there's also some class moves going on right now. And well, as we come back to Stewart versus Brockner, what you can see there is Mikey Stewart right now just holding his ground versus Casper, and he doesn't want to let the places go until he's ready to do so. But with that, and with the opening 10 minutes of this race practically complete, we are going to take a look back at some of the big moments from the start of the race, ladies and gentlemen. And here we go for our trip back in time. So this was our race start as the racing did get underway, and what a start it was here for our 9th race of the season, because Adam Watson got the field going out to the final corner, and when he did so, it was a great start from Watson. He really caught out Thomas Noakes there. You can see Noakes lost out a little bit, but it was Wheeler versus Probert, which was really the big point of battling in towards turn number 1, and you can see behind Thomas Pugh battling already with Steve Hobbs there, as Hobbs had the inside line and could look for a move, but up the hill they went, and as they did so, well, everyone's safely on through at the opening few corners, which was wonderful to see. We did have a bit of a moment, meanwhile, further back down the order, and that was the wayward car of Ryan Clark going around, and there you could see it, the Spectre Racing try losing out with a little bit of contact here. We couldn't quite see who it was, and it all went a bit wrong, and Ryan Littlewhite had to take evasive action. This is what it looked like a bit closer to the ground, and there was a touch. Now, was it Littlewhite or was it Conley? We can't tell you based on that angle, but we know somebody has tapped the rear of Ryan Clark's car there. But everyone did very well to address it, including Ryan Clark, who let the car roll backwards into the grass rather than holding the brakes. That's the one time when not holding your brakes has actually worked out. Now, in all of that, we had this on lap number 6 to explain what happened to Thomas Noakes. So, remember first, side by side all the way down towards turn number 1, battling side by side with Harvey Wheeler at the time for 3rd place. They headed up the hill, and Wheeler in the end just elbowed him slightly off the road, but immediately backed off. But the problem was, Thomas Pugh then came up the hill, so Wheeler could not back off any further, and with Noakes having all that grass and trying to rejoin, he was struggling to get on the road, and that's how Thomas Pugh made his way around the outside. But then how did Noakes lose out subsequent to that? Well, it was this moment from what was Kyle Roy. So Noakes making his way through turn number 5. The car understeered wide. It went up into that curb at turn number 5. He lost all the momentum. And well, Kyle Roy said at that point, right, I'm going for this, whether you like it or not. And looked around the outside. And Thomas Noakes just simply tucked in. So that happened, and then just in parallel, a lap later, we had this for Mikey Stewart. So Stewart made his way through the S's. Sciencey was right behind in the battle for second and inter, and Stewart went wide, and the car bounced completely wide there, took too much speed out of turn 5, and Sciencey said, thank you very much, I'll take that off for you, all welcome. And in there, Max Wheeler tried to make it a 2-for-1 special, but Mikey Stewart said, no, one place at a time if you please. And, well, Max Wheeler said, no, I'm going to take it off for you, thank you very much. And that's how it all changed. And then we unfortunately had this for Ryan Littlemore a lap later, on lap number 8 in a car that was already wounded. Reverse so fast by Freewheeler Racing. It was in some contact earlier on, and unfortunately the rear of the car coming loose there through the S's. Oh, goodness me, almost up onto its roof on the barrier there, and the reverse so fast by Freewheeler Racing to end up in a big shunt. And we've just had this happen for David Pilcher and Ryan Clark, 2 wide in towards turn number 6, And as they come up towards turn number 7, the SimRacing Racing UK driver went in on the inside, hit the curb, went a little bit wide as a result of the understeer invoked by the curb, and made contact to Clark, but waited there for Clark to go. So great respectful racing between them, and well, David Pilcher immediately putting his hands up there and saying, look, I'm at fault and there's nobody behind me, so therefore I'm going to let you go. But unfortunately, in all of that, we have lost Ryan Littlemore as a result of the shunt to the barrier at the S's. But we come back to plenty more racing, ladies and gentlemen, and goodness me, has it been an exciting opening 15 minutes already. We haven't completed 15 minutes, so we're getting ahead of ourselves. The point being, right now, there's more to come. And, well, one of the big questions we have got is how Tim Probert came to make his way past Thomas Noakes. And, well, we are actually going to get a quick replay of that. That's the one move that we did not catch earlier on. And here it was. This is all the way back on lap 3, and it was Tim Probert, Send It Racing, just having the overspeed down towards the chicane, and went up the inside, albeit Noakes tried to fight it as hard as possible. It just did not have enough in the tank to do so. But we come back to your live racing. And as we do, we come back down towards the same place we've just seen an overtake made in the past, because this is now going to be Grant Miller trying to make his way past Jack Barker. But Barker says, no, you don't. And as they head up the hill right now, it is going to be one wide as they make the way onwards. And right now, Grant Miller trying to come back here, but this is not going to work out versus Barker. And Barker right now really digging in for that position. He does not want to let anyone go. So Barker had an impressive qualifying points, but right now the pace that Aston Martin isn't there. Jake Muttett, teammate to Miller, looks up the inside. So Miller says, okay, Jake, if you think you can do it, go for it, because that is an into dry in front of you overall. But they're going to go too wide up into turns 2 and 3. They're going to fight each other, and will red or blue come out to top? In the end, it's Green Phoenix Racing Blues butted. That could have been much worse than that, and I think Grant Miller there, he could see he was going to hit the curb high at turn number 3 and backed off immediately under braking into the corner. He tried to take all the speed out the car before he hit the curb. If he hadn't, if he'd gone in fully into the corner, he would have understeered into the side of Muttett's car. So great action to Miller there, and great awareness, and Jake Muttett will take that 18th overall for now to chase after Jack Barker. And Grant Miller still comfortable, knowing the fact he's not losing any place in club, because the nearest club driver is Martin Kenyon, a grand total of 2.5 seconds behind. You can see in the rear of the picture. He now wants to focus on cameraman's attention as he makes his way onto the backstretch of his second racing. But further back, Tom Wheeler still trying to make some progress, and he chases after Jordan Butler. And with Jordan Butler, one of the latest late breakers when he made that move on Wheeler earlier on. And now Wheeler's trying to come back at him here and says, well, I'm going to do what you can do. Coming down here, the Spectre Racing Feet Sim works Mercedes. Again, it's that speed on the straight. Wheeler's able to stay with him, but the problem is that Mustang has not got a pace advantage in the draft, and that shows you, well, the difference in the setups of the cars here and also the balance of performance. That Mustang right now, it really has been neutered a little bit compared to how it previously has been, but to be fair, it was considered to be overperforming, but in wet conditions earlier on this season. That's why it has been heavily BOP tweaked. But right now, we are seeing that the Spectre Racing Feet Simworks outfit definitely got it right with that Mercedes, and Jordan Butler very happy with the car. And I just wonder whether perhaps they've gone for a little more straight line speed to give them an overtaking advantage. But as we look from the back of the field, we come even further down towards the very back. Ryan Clark still going, David Pilcher in the rear of the picture. So these two fighting over 10th place at the moment in the club class, but Clark quite clear as a result of Pilcher waiting to let him go. As that contact between the two of them, but very respectful between them. They're the last of your runners. But back up to the very front of the field we go. And the R23M Esports 388 of Adam Watson right now, just simply pulling away. And as he'll say himself, absolutely simply lovely here. And well, he's absolutely flying. That lap, a 1 minute 17.88, I do believe, and 8.77 to the nearest 1,000th. Tim Probert by comparison, a 1 minute 17.917. So personal best, but he is currently lacking by the best part of half a tenth, and therefore that's what's causing the gap to continue to expand. Still, he's waiting for his opportunity to go on the attack again at some point in the near future. Harvey Wheeler running in that third place, and the Versa Repo Freewheeler Racing driver. One small cloud hanging over his race, but I suspect he's also been told over the radio, Harvey, just focus on what you can do now. If you are going to be subject to a penalty after the race as a result of that contact between yourself and Thomas Noakes, what is done is done. You can't fix it. If you can address it towards the end of the race, do so, but don't think about it now. Don't become overly obsessed about it, which is very easy to do when you're an honourable driver. But as Casper makes his way very wide there, almost goes into the barrier out of the exit at turn number 5. Well, that's rallycross on the Mercedes AMG if I've ever seen it, but that just avoided the barrier for the old duty cars vintage driver, who's chasing after Max Wheeler for 10th place in Pro. But we've had a bit of difficulty for Mikey Stewart, I do believe. Oh, hold up a second. What's happened to Mikey Stewart's car? Well, that's missing the bonnet right now, or the hood, depending on your nomenclature. The existing sport with SimCoach driver, depending on the nomenclature, what doesn't change the fact that is a Mercedes that has, or not a Mercedes, a BMW that's got an exposed engine. And well, that's not going to be helping in regards to aerodynamic drag. It also won't be helping the cleanliness of the engine, as it will be dust and debris that's starting to go into that. And well, how long has he got before he needs to come into the pit lane in order to be able to potentially turn this into an undercut strategy, and most critically to get the fast repair on the car, which means the mechanics immediately returns the car to 100% normal condition. And well, it won't be too long surely, because the pit window typically has been around about 20 minutes of the race, normally at 10 minutes either side of the middle, but right now Stuart has got at least one more lap in order to get towards that pit window. But to fill you in exactly what's happened, ladies and gentlemen, to the man who was running in third in Inter at the time, here's a quick replay to explain. So it was a very eventful lap 13 for Mikey Stewart as he came down in towards the S's, but what events transpired? So came through and the rear of the car started to let go. It was the Ryan Littlemore incident, but he went straight into the barrier rather than sideways into the barrier, and that explains it all. And then Mikey Stewart had to get the car going, but understandably rejoined on the grass rather than rejoined on the road, and that way made sure to rejoin as safely as possible. Great awareness of Mikey Stewart. A lot would not do that, but he's definitely learned from awareness in the past, I suspect, and making sure to get on the circuit in the right way possible. But of course, that absolutely hurts. That completely blunts his charge, and well, he lost out on Magny-Cours in the battle with Hayden Young here today. He could be losing out just through one mistake being made, and well, this right now, if things were to finish as they currently stand between Stewart and Young, with what would be Mikey Stewart down in 8th place in class, and meanwhile Young would be taking the win, it would mean Mikey Stewart would go into the season finale with a 10-point advantage. They would be practically even, and it would be, unless they finish far down the order, the pair of them, it would come down to who finished ahead of the other. So right now for Mikey Stewart, he's got to get his A game back on, but to do so, he's first got to survive to the pit lane, and then with a repaired car, he will go hunting. But that is the story of Mikey Stewart, a very big story at that one. Carl Wright and Thomas Noakes together still. Noakes is closing back up to him here, and I think right now the Ferrari driver trying to use his fellow Ferrari in order to save as much fuel as he can. I think for Thomas Noakes, this is one of those races that is just not looking to be going right at all at the moment, so therefore he's got to bring himself back into it. As Carl Wright very sideways out of turn 7, they're more sideways than straight in that Ferrari. Not normally see the Ferrari be a very stable mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, but it seems like even Carl Wright is finding the limits of where the grip is. Thomas Pugh at the head of the trio as he comes him down towards the chicane, and we see Harvey Wheeler just a bit further up the road, put 2.3 seconds with Tim Probert and Adam Watson further off into the distance. But Hayden Young, well, he's got a bit of a threat growing on him. No, it's not Matthew Croft behind. It is the purple and black car that's behind Matthew Croft, Cy Anthony. And Anthony right now is absolutely flying out there. He's currently the fastest of your Inter drivers by a couple of tenths versus Hayden Young. And the UKSimRacing Hamilton driver is really getting a move on. Now, he's been aided by the draft, to be fair, off of the back of Croft's car. But also, what it has to be said is Cy Anthony is using that draft and his pace. He is not just simply backing off of the saving fuel. If he is doing any fuel saving, I suspect he's doing it quite tactically. But as he comes on through, meanwhile, Barker versus Muttit. Well, we're going to see Jack Barker defend on the outside into turn 1 again. And we does so this time. Jake Muttit not fully alongside on entry, so Muttit backs off. That's the fight for third place in the Interclass. The Mater Racer driver trying to keep the Phoenix Racing blue McLaren behind. And going down the hill and in towards the S's once again. 20 minutes of race complete. We've still got 40 plus a final lap to go. And Jack Barker right now, well, this is definitely going to be one of his hardest fought drives for a podium if it stands. And well, he's got to try and hold on for a lot longer this. He's making his final stand today, but right now it's proven successful. But will we see more from him? We'll have to wait and see. As meanwhile, we've got Tom Wheeler chasing after Alexander Vingmark, or should we say Alexander Vingmark has cleared Tom Wheeler quite recently. So Wheeler's now dropped down to 7th place in club. Vingmark is up into 6th, and ahead of them is Jordan Butler. And how did that move get made? Well, here's a very quick replay to explain. So, this was coming down in towards the chicane, and it was Wheeler looking for a potential move initially on Butler. Oh, got it wrong on the brake now, had to snatch the car to left, otherwise he would have gone into the back of Butler, I think, in his haste to try and make a move. Tom Wheeler there missed his braking zone by about 20 metres, realised it in time, and then pulled the car to the right and said, no, I'm not going to take him out of the race, instead I'll take myself out of his way. And Alexander Vingmark was close enough there just to simply sweep on through. So Vingmark making up for a mistake. And meanwhile, we do see, back on your live pictures here, Hendrik Zilker and Luke Sherlock. Sherlock taking a look and he's trying to find his way into 5th place. And Sherlock trying to make his way onwards after that difficult qualifying session. He started 8th in class. He's up into 5th currently as we show you the class standings on the left-hand side of your screen. Fastest lap in the club class has just been set by Martin Kenyon. A very impressive lap, that one. So Martin Kenyon, 1 minute 18.64. He's now starting to get himself right into the hunt. And we'll have to see where that brings him a bit later on. But in terms of Matthew Masseylou's now, well, we're not quite sure what's happened, but what we can tell you is that is Luke Sherlock getting the better run out of turn 5 versus Hendrik Zilka, and Pete Holt's behind. So Zilka went wide at 5. Pete Holt now says, well, if one driver's going to make his way through, can I make my way through as well? But he's not close enough there. The Syndic Racing Bulls driver, green with him, Martin Kenyon, the 2nd place club driver. And, well, this will chop and change very quickly between these drivers. We will have to wait and see. Off camera, Hayden Young has now moved up into 8th place overall, ahead of Steve Hobbs. That's overall position only. And I believe Matthew Croft is going to be making a move at very short. No science, he's passing Matthew Croft. But meanwhile on screen, Pete Holt on the inside of Zilka. Zilka touches once, touches twice. And Pete Holt there being squeezed the apex, but he's not going to be denied the chance. And Zilka goes very wide off the corner. Well, I think that's a bit of late braking there for Hendrik Zilka. And then he backs off entirely, respecting the fact that he's elbowed him out there. And Zilka into the pit lane. So I think Zilka's decided not to fight it anymore. And the old dudes in cars amnesia driver comes in, unless there's an issue with the car they've suddenly discovered as a result of that contact. But Pete Holt does make his way up into 6th place in the in-class. A bit of argy-bargy between the two of them, but they both got away with it there, and I suspect they'll be treated as a racing instant between them. Well, I think it was definitely a squeeze the apex into the first part of chicane by Zilka, but gave Holt some space to cooperate, and I think his haste to try and hold on, he outbroke himself into the 2nd part of the chicane, and that is what held them both a bit wide. They both survived it in the end, and will Zilka into the pit lane. He's decided to come in and get himself some clear track instead, and also probably use the fast repair for any bodywork damage as a result of their contact. But still exciting that stuff from them, and indeed plenty more excitement to be had as we do look back up to Matthew Croft, currently 8th in the pro class. Still has slight anti for close company. Anti right now really is all over the back of him. However, intriguingly, these two fighting as hard as they are, it's actually binding Hayden Young and also Steve Hobbs some space here. So right now the pro driver still ahead of the inter driver, but both of them want to clear each other, and Max Wheeler being brought onto the back of this. So suddenly the Aversa Fast by Freewheeler Racing driver with Anti running wide goes to rejoin, and here he comes looking up the inside as Max Wheeler. He can't pull any punch on this one, he's got to go for it, and you can see up there not Steve Hobbs, Matthew Croft braking as late as he possibly could to make sure he wouldn't be double passed, and once they come up the hill, Max Wheeler backs off there on the outside to inside line to 3, and Will Scienti retakes that place. And Scienti right now, well, as we said previously earlier on in the season, when he's in a fight, he really does go for it. He is like a bull to a matador, Scienti, and he gets stuck in. He literally sinks his teeth in, and you cannot pry him off once he starts fighting with you. The only way it's going to go is by the 2 ways. You either get a gap from him of about 2 seconds, or he passes you. And he really does have quite the inner demon in him, and indeed you could say he's channeling the inner spirit of Wales' most famous Formula 1 driver and only Formula 1 driver of Tom Price. And of course a section of the Anglesey circuit named after him in honour of his passing all those many years ago. And Scienti right now definitely racing in a way that Tom Price will be proud of as he makes way on with the UKSimRacing Hamilton driver back in the Turcroft for now, waiting for the next opportunity. But that Porsche so quick on the straight, and that is really enabling him to get right into the thick of the battle. But speaking of battling, John Butler and Tom Wheeler exchanging positions again. Better run out the corner there for Tom Wheeler, but too close to the back of Butler's car, coming out of 7. And James Conley, he's watching this. He's got the popcorn seat view as we ride on board with the Ferrari 296 for UKSimRacing Norris. And as he heads on down here, well, is it going to be a valet or not? In terms of when he gets close enough, we'll have to see. And as they come down towards that braking zone, and well, Butler holding off the Mustang there of Tom Wheeler, but Conley really watching this right now like a hawk and thinking, when can I get involved? And the answer, at least at the moment, is he can't for the time being. Now, an update on Hendrik Zilka, who pitted, as we do see a duck to the pit there for Tom Wheeler, and Harvey Wheeler's coming to the pits as well already. So Wheeler in, there he is with clear track in front of him. Ryan Clark, he's just passed. And so therefore, Harvey Wheeler right now, really at this point, just got to hammer out those laps. It's got to be a qualifying session or a time trial session now for him. And also Hendrik Zilka. Harvey Wheeler, the highest placed driver who has pitted, is 30th overall. Hendrik Zilka is 32nd, just fighting with David Pilcher and having recently passed him. Tom Wheeler still in the pit lane being serviced at the moment. I suspect he will be coming out behind Hendrik Zilka, but not by much, because shortly Wheeler will be going from his pit stall. And when he does so, where will we go, go, go? So Hendrik Zilka will come through. Tom Wheeler now starts to leave the pit lane, and as he does so, there he goes, and he will drop to the very back of the field, but he will be comfortably safe. And he's battling with rivals, but he will go a lap down to the leaders. Meanwhile, Jack Barker versus Jake Muttett will come back to them just in the nick of time in the fight for third in the interclass. Muttett with his best opportunity this time around the outside of the chicane. Going to work there, and Jack Barker in the end gives him the space on the inside, only turning in. He's outbroken him in towards 10B, and Jack Barker right now absolutely holding on with certainty right now. He's not the quickest in that Aston Martin, but the Magny-Cours racing driver living up to the team name there. He's going racing today. He wants that podium, and well, he is making sure that if anybody gets past him, they're going to have to throw everything at it. But meanwhile, Mikey Stewart into the pit lane, so he survived into where he wants to be on the strategy. He's gone a lot longer than we thought he would have. We thought he would have come in about 6 to 7 minutes ago, right at the start of the pit window, but he's decided to come in as per call, and well, it seems they've been able to offset the difficulties of that BMW with the damage. But he will take a fast repair, and it will be a full fuel tank that goes in that gets him to the end of the race. Where he changes a tyre knot, that's entirely up to him. Some drivers opt to not change a single tyre, some will change 1 or 2 depending on how long the fuel gun needs to go in, because remember, tyres and fuel are in parallel as per the IMSA Sports Car regulations for the 2026 season. And well, let's wait and see where that brings him out. But meanwhile, Jordan Butler and James Connolly together, and with Tom Wheeler home pit to James Connolly right now, it's almost as if that's lit a fire under him. And here comes Connolly looking around the outside through turn number 6 into 7, and Connolly's going to try and outbrake Butler. Butler, to be fair, he's the late breakers on those inside lines, and it'll be 2 wide now. The battle of the Mercedes and the Ferrari. You can see there the initial run from Connolly is superior to what is Butler's Mercedes, but looking back from the rear of the 146 for UKSimRacing Norris, will we see Butler now look for a return move into the braking zone. Gap down to a 10th, now less than a 10th there, 800, 700s, there'll be 600 series. He gets ready to go into the braking zone. Here he goes. John Butler looking up the inside, Connolly on the outside. 2 wide, they break the way in. Which way is it going to go? Connolly goes a bit deep, Butler goes deep with him, but he lets him rejoin. It's 2 wide going up the hill, but it's going to be James Connolly just ahead for now as they come down the hill and in towards the next lap. Still fighting hard, and Jordan Butler looking for another move. Is he going to go for it into 1? Yes, he is. A 10th is the gap between the two of them. He looks once. Does he finger it twice? Well, is he going to go for it thrice now? The answer is no, but Connolly then runs a bit deep out the corner, just about keeps him in track limits. And James Connolly will hold that position. Jordan Butler surely he's not going to go for it from that far back in towards turn number 3. And the answer is no. As meanwhile, was a big twist in the tail. We have a new club leader, because the man who was leading, this man, Grant Miller, well, his car looks okay, but Martin Kenyon has got ahead of him. Now, what's happened to enable that? Well, here's a replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen. So Grant Miller coming on down there, and at the time, Jake Muttett had got ahead of Jack Barker, so we'll get a replay of the move being made. But Miller came out the corner, took too much curve at 10B, and it sent the car round. And for Grant Miller, going for a spin there, and well, thankfully avoiding the tyre barrier, but losing lead of the club classes. That was Martin Kenyon coming on through. But as for how Jake Muttett passed Jack Barker, it was just before. And it was in the run through turn 6 into 7 onto the braking zone. They went for turn 7, and as Barker came out the corner, went way too deep, and Jake Martin outran the Aston Martin all the way down, and that explains the story there of how it all played down. It was Grant Miller essentially trying to scythe his way past what was Barker's car to no avail, and then had that spin accordingly. But with that, we now come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, and pit stops are literally pouring in. As meanwhile, the moves pour in. Being marked up the inside of Stephen Wilkinson there. Wilkinson does not fight it. I think the SimCast racing driver playing a bit more passive and waiting for what is the pit stops to play out. I think Wilkinson is playing the fuel-saving game as much as humanly possible. John Harley just behind them in a lovely livery car, the Spectre Racing Feet Murby. We haven't seen that livery until now. So they've got a new livery for the trip to Road Atlanta, and it's a lovely livery on the car there. Really a dedicated Ford livery, it could be said. Running more of the traditional colours of Ford performance, and right now his performance definitely impressive for Spectre Racing Feet Murby, although 7th in his class. He would ideally like a top 5 if he can take it, but remember we've still got a lot of strategy to play out as he hangs onto the back there. Jordan Butler, will he make a move? The answer is yes, he goes up the inside. And John Harley has passed both James Connolly and Jordan Butler in all of this. So Harley is now making progress after the 2 club tries to fight each other so hard, but I suspect it is going to be all back and forth between them before too long. Meanwhile, Kyle Roy still, as we come back to the front of the field, we haven't forgotten there's a top 5. Well, he's on the back there of a car to go a lap down shortly. That is the BMW of David Pilcher. The problem is he's caught him at the S's, and Pilcher at that point cannot really pull aside, even if he wanted to. Although the regulations we run here are the GT racing regulations of blue flags. And well, we'll talk more about that later, because let's not change the subject, which is that Roy and Noakes are together. And well, Kyle Roy right now hands to dig in. Thomas Noakes is now starting to show his pace a little bit here towards the end of the opening half an hour and going into the second half of the race. So has this all been part of Noakes' strategy, which is he lost out early on versus his rivals, but now he's trying to see what he can do here, knowing that Harvey Wheeler has gone up for the early pit stop, has gone for the undercut, and Harvey Wheeler's down in 27th place at the moment. He's got clear track, so Noakes looking down the outside of Roy. This battle's going to cost them both time, and it's going to be outside to inside here for Noakes. Lovely setup here. Kyle Roy gives him the space, but drag race over the hill, and Roy still a nose ahead for now, and Noakes still having to wait behind a little bit longer as we ride on board here in the 3:09. But Thomas Noakes definitely all fired up, and he's been waiting for over half the race to go all in for this, and now he's going to see what he can do to get ahead. He needs to clear Roy, he feels, in order to have this race go his way. And Kyle Roy not on the pace at the moment, but Thomas Noakes fighting hard. Oh, it's a poor line from Thomas Noakes there. I thought the rear of the car was going to come loose over the hill, or 2 into 3, and Noakes has lost the best part of the whole second there with that mistake. Just a poor line into 2, Conway's his line on the brakes into 3, and suddenly Noakes has got it all to do once again. But that is over enthusiasm essentially, where he feels though he wants to go quicker and quicker, and he's forgetting his line just in that brief moment. We all do it, even the pros do it, as you've seen from Noakes, but he'll get back on the ascent very quickly. Meanwhile, Luke Sherlock trying to eye up another move, now trying to pick on Jack Barker. So after Barker was passed by Muttit, suddenly it does seem as though, like a dam, it started to crack and the places are pouring on through. Can Luke Sherlock find a way in? Remember, difficult qualifying session with British drivers had a really impressive recovery in this race so far. A bit wide out of turn 5, but takes that curb and is absolutely fine to do so. The Mustang, heavy enough car, then they set the suspension up to be able to hit that curb without worrying about hitting the bump stops. Comes through turn 6 and 7 right now, closing he is, and meanwhile Steve Hobbs and Matthew Croft side by side here. These two have been fighting earlier on, they're now fighting again as they come through the chicane. Hobbs on the inside to outside, Croft on the outside to inside, and as they head over the rise, Whitby Croft who gets clear. Here comes Sight Anti up the inside of Hobbs, and right now Hobbs, he wasn't expecting this. Here comes Max Wheeler as well. It's going to be 3 for 1, or is it? No, it seems to be 2 at that one, but he's going to run wide, is Hobbs, and here they go as Thomas Noakes is into the pit lane on the left hand side of your screen. So he comes on in then from his battle with Kyle Roy for 4th place, and he's decided he needs to respond, and that means we need to keep an eagle eye on where exactly Harvey Wheeler is, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as we do see this leading quartet of drivers making the way down the hill, in fact quintet we could say. Well, meanwhile we do see Thomas Noakes in the pit lane right now. There he is stationary. Harvey Wheeler meanwhile making his way along the back stretch, and as he comes on down the Aversa Rapid by three-wheeler racing driver makes his way on through, and Noakes is already leaving the pits. What on earth has happened to Harvey Wheeler? Now, as we see the UKSim Sport try and make his way onwards, well, Thomas Noakes is well clear of Harvey Wheeler. Has there been a mistake for Harvey somewhere? Because if so, of course, we saw the contact between himself and Noakes earlier on, but beyond that, we haven't seen anything else. And, well, I wonder whether Harvey Wheeler has had a mistake somewhere, because he's lost a lot of time. And, in fact, he's so far back at Thomas Noakes right now. They've had identical pit stop times in terms of stationary, but he spent an extra 3 seconds in the pit lane. But that does not explain the gap between the two of them, unless, well, the only thing I can think of is he's had a bit of an error and it has not been picked up by our trackside sensors or cameras. But Harvey Wheeler has lost out dramatically in this race. Well, else why. We thought it might be perhaps a stop and hold penalty for being in the pit lane, but it's definitely not that, because otherwise we would have that information fed to us, ladies and gentlemen, so we're left confused and bemused. But it is Thomas Noakes now who has come to be ahead of Wheeler in the battle for what be pro positions, and well, both of them are the leading pro drivers to have pitted. So therefore all the other pros have yet to pit. As we see a car off the road there, that is Tom Wheeler on the grass, and Tom Wheeler going a lap down there to lead lappers, not wanting to get in the way and frustrate anyone, as he does rejoin, and he rejoins with a slowdown penalty there. The iRacing shooting system unfortunately does not discriminate when you cut a corner, whether you cut the corner to avoid an incident or whether you've done it as part of rejoining the circuit. You have to serve the slowdown still. But meanwhile, what's not slowing down here is Nathan Anstis and Darren Sharples, nose to tail, fighting over ninth place in pro class as they come through turn 6 into 7 right now. Well, Sharples is close enough to be thinking about a move, but he's not close enough to actually make it, and has to stay there at least for the time being. Off camera, Mikey Stewart has found his way past Hendrik Silke recently for 8th place in the interclass. So Stewart, of course, on that recovery drive after his big incident earlier on. He's going on the attack, and, well, definitely doing a good job of it, as we see Darren Sharples getting ready potentially to pounce into the chicane versus Anstis, but this time he's just too far back to do it. Maybe on the next time round he'll go for it. Whilst all this is happening, meanwhile, at the very front of the field, Adam Watson with an 11.6 second lead right now. This man is absolutely in control of this race. 11.6 seconds ahead of Tim Probert. Well, that gap has come down to 11.3 seconds for the opening sector. So not the best opening sector this time for Watson, but Robert right now really just trying to see where he can bring on home this second place today, and that will be his best performance of the season. If so, Thomas Pugh 3.5 seconds behind, but very steadily catching on him, a 10th a lap. Nathan Anstiss into the pit lane to look at the Conti booth window, so he comes on in. And meanwhile, Max Wheeler still fighting with Hobbs and Brockman to get ahead of Steve Hobbs. And well, it definitely was a bit of a bold and brave move to be able to make it happen, but in the end he found it. And well, Max Wheeler in the end find himself a bit adventurous as well, taking some grass along the way, but how exactly did he make that move? Well, the answer is, here we go back and check in time, ladies and gentlemen, to show you. So this was the big charge all the way down towards turn 6. We had to leave this behind for a moment, but it was 3 wide there. Oh, goodness me! And Matthew Croppy turned sideways there in contact. And well, that's what the exit since what Bandit's driver turned. And well, that's what led to all that. He went round again there on the exit turn number 7. I don't believe it for the 313 driver. It went from good to bad to disastrous and sent him all the way backwards. But in all of that, well, can we see who actually turned him? Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen, if we can. Because it definitely all happened very quickly there, and under braking, well, I think it was, I believe that might have been Tom Wheeler there, who thought about braking on the inside but broke too late Touchcraft, and then subsequently great evasion there for Max Wheeler. Steve Hobbs around the outside. At this point, Matthew Croft, hot tyres and too much power coming up the corner. The rear of the car completely let go. Very unfortunate. And well, for Tom Wheeler, you could see what he tried to do there in the 133 on that inside line. But unfortunately, I think he just outbroke himself with Croft in the middle of the road. And well, it was always going to be risky there. 3 to 4 wide into turn 6. And well, definitely one the stewards will take a look at there. But I think everyone will agree they did their best given the circumstances. And well, as we all continue on the live racing action, well, meanwhile, Jack Barker into the pit lane. He was due to be fighting with Luke Sherlock at the time, but Sherlock was the one who decided to pit first. So this will be close between the two of them. We do believe that Barker really is now fighting for 5th place in the Interclass today on strategy and on track versus Sherlock. Given the way the pace has gone, Barker is leaving his pit stall. Sherlock is coming on. And well, I think Barker, in fact, is going to lose this because he comes up through. Luke Sherlock scoops around the outside on the road. Barker makes it out the hill, and Hendrik Zilka's almost there. Mikey Stewart goes up past, and Jack Barker is all the way back to 8th in Interclass. I don't believe it. Hendrik Zilka almost catches him out as well. We still do have a few pit stops left to go in the Interclass, including John Harley, Peter Holt and Jake Muttit, plus also Sight Anti and Hayden Young. But I suspect the only real names that are going to get into the pit where Barker and Zilka are concerned will be Peter Holt and well, Jake Muttit if he has a poor stop. But Muttit is in now, and well, therefore for Jack Barker this is going from good to bad to backwards. Meanwhile for Hendrik Zilka this could be an opportunity to pick up some more points, and Mikey Stewart meanwhile continues his journey forward, but knowing right now at least that if the results finish as they currently stand, he will essentially see all his lead wiped out before the season finale. To see if that's the way it goes. In reality is Hayden Young still got a way to go. He's still got to bring this home. That's not to say he won't be able to bring it home, ladies and gentlemen, but of course anything can happen in motorsport, and it normally does at some point. We'll have to see. As meanwhile we look back to Martin Kenyon, the club leader before the pit stops. Well, he is the leading club driver who has pitted, and the majority of the club class into the pits now, apart from Matthew Massey. After losing out in the early stages, the Spectre Racing driver carrying on and still keeping calm and trying to chase down that podium in club today. And we believe he's in the battle for 2nd and 3rd versus Grant Miller and also Jordan Butler. But as Grant Miller leaves the pit lane, there he goes. Well, the Phoenix Racing Red driver will be definitely coming out behind Martin Kenyon, who's just made his way up the hill. So Miller, therefore, the best part of 4 seconds behind Kenyon in the battle for strategic lead in club. And meanwhile, Stephen Wilkinson carries on. In fact, Wilkinson for SimRacing Racing UK, he's into 4th place ahead of Butler, Vingmark, and well, it does seem as though he's made a big jump there. And Massey is, where is Matthew Massey? Well, he's your leader, of course, so we're waiting to see where he fits into the picture. So Stephen Wilkinson might be the man who ends up battling with him at the moment, but we'll see. Meanwhile, what we also see on the road is Carl Roy versus Thomas Noakes again, and Noakes very close this time. 20 minutes to go, they've still yet to beat, and Noakes really wants to get this move done. He has caught back up to Carl Roy, but the problem is right now he's really being held at bay here, and it's not because Roy's going too defensive, it's just that Noakes cannot find that final 5% to get alongside, and that's the challenge he's finding. As meanwhile they find some traffic into the S's. That's Ryan Clark. Now Clark's just got to hold his line at this point, and Carl Roy and Noakes will know that that's all that can be done. It's the exit at turn 5 that matters for Roy. He needs to get a really good run out here to clear Clark and be safe. And he'll do so as Clark there stays on the outside, and well, he'll see that they're going to be battling and into the braking zone here. In fact, they both get a poor run versus Clark, and in the end, Noakes does get on through. Archie Williams comes up to the back of this, and Ryan Clark has to literally lift off entirely there for turn 6 and 7, so let all 3 of them go. Ryan Clark had the better run of everybody there coming out of turn 5. Well, how about that? It's a shame he's a lap down, so I wonder where his pace would be right now if he were not a lap down. But meanwhile, Mikey Stewart, Luke Charlotte, they're fighting over 4th place and Inter. So this is all fitting back together now with all the pit stops done for all your Inter drivers. Young is the leader and he's in second. They're both well clear of the rest of the pack. And then Jake Muttit is 4 seconds ahead of this pair of Sherlock and Stewart, with Barker only 1.4 seconds behind and Zilka with him. So it's not over yet for 4th place in the Inter class. We've potentially got a 4, if not 5-way fight forming, because Peter Holt is only 1.2 seconds behind Zilka, behind in the camera. So therefore this could all still be very much boxing gloves on. But as they make the way down towards turn number 10, well, Zilka here right now is going to try and land a knockout blow on Barker to get past him. And we'll battle Mercedes engines here, but right now the naturally aspirated V8 in the Mercedes AMG car. It's just outrunning the Aston Martin a little bit, but into the braking zone they go. And Barker here is not going to let go. He's done this time and time again today. Defend that inside, get a really good run between the two apex of the chicane and the 216 driver. He may not be the quickest driver out there, but goodness me, does he know how to defend here. He's really making that Aston Martin as wide and as difficult to pass as possible. And well, it's absolutely admirable. But as he tries to keep that up, meanwhile, Tom Wheeler and Jordan Butler fight over 8th in club. And well, Tom Wheeler's definitely had a bit of back and forth with Jordan Butler in the first stint of the race, and they find each other again. It's almost fate has tied them together, and Jordan Butler slowly creeping on past the Ford Mustang, which we know has about a 2-mile-an-hour straight line speed deficit in the clear down this back straight, and that's what's just cost Wheeler the opportunity to fight for that position at least for now. He'll try and come back a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Roy versus Noakes, and Noakes trying to go around the outside. Kyle Roy into the chicane, just jumped back ahead of him there on the inside and braking, and will either one of them come into the pit lane? No, neither does. And for Thomas Noakes at this point, well, what else is he thinking other than he's got to get on through? Well, the amount of time he's losing here, would it not have been better to try and come into the pit lane and go for the undercut at this point? Should just losing time. Well, he doesn't seem to think so, as meanwhile Kyle Roy continue to frustrate him. Remember, they have pitted, in fact, so in the end it is Noakes to come back out behind Roy as they come downhill. Everyone has served their pit stops, but the fact of the matter is he has been glued to the back of him, and like a bad rash, he's just not been able to get past. And indeed, he's not gone away either with Kyle Roy, and this fight for full place in the Pro class just carries on. And meanwhile, Hendrik Zilka and Barker come together over the hill, and Barker as he slides to a halt, he keeps it together, and we lose Zilka there for a brief moment. He does carry on. Surely we haven't lost Zilka as a result of that. Where so I'm not quite sure what's happened to Hendrik Zilka. It will not be a disqualification for instant points. He's not picked up a black flag today. So therefore for Hendrik Zilka, it must be a technical issue of some descriptions. Perhaps something's broken on the car over the hill as a result of the contact with Barker, and he's immediately pulled the car out of the race. If so, well done to him for quick reactions there, but that's very unfortunate for Barker. Understandably, he won't be too pleased about the contact, given it has cost a place to Peter Holt. However, I'm sure they'll talk about that one afterwards, and I don't think there was any malice meant there. We'll get a replay of that when we can. It definitely was a bit of a fiery moment, and it had plenty of twists and turns in it in all the space of a couple of seconds. Well, as he now has Grant Miller behind him, Barker's now got another driver looking to knock on his door and find a way through. Meanwhile, we come back to the fight for 4th overall in Pro, and Roy, Noakes and Williams together, and the Access Sim Sports with Simworks driver, still keeping the UK Sim Sport driver behind with Williams there for close company. And well, they all pitted as late as they possibly could. Roy pitting what was the best part of 4 laps later, Noakes, but Noakes couldn't get the jump on him. Roy, meanwhile, absolutely nailed it. And well, understandably right now for Thomas Noakes, this is a race that has been tied to the back of the Scotsman's car. Well, you can see there in the rear of the picture, Archie Williams looking for it, but Noakes looks to the inside. Roy goes defensive, and now looking all the way around. And this just helps Harvey Wheeler out here, understandably, because with Noakes not able to move forward, it only means that for Harvey Wheeler, the damage being done to his lead is nowhere near as pronounced. But to be fair, for Thomas Noakes, in the heat of this moment, I think he will be getting frustrated there. He can't find a way forward, but also he's just got to keep praying the car does not give up on him like it has at Suzuka, and also last time at Magny-Cours. If he finishes this race right now, that will be points in the bag, and it will be a bit of the gap brought down, as here comes Archie Williams looking around the outside. He's going to go for it quite late there in the Porsche, and well, in the end, Noakes says to him no. He just simply gives him the shoulder, and well, in the end, Archie Williams falls back in position behind as they've got a quarter of the race to go. 15 minutes in the final lap. Still plenty of excitement. Jared Love there says, hold him off, Kyle. And right now, Kyle Roy doing everything. The Access is what was Simworks drive. Been cheered on by his fellow Scotsman. And I do know a bit of camaraderie has come up between what is Kyle Roy and Jared Love in the Thursday Championship on a weekly basis, where at one point it was looking to be an all-Scottish top 3 in the interclass of what was Jared Love, Kyle Roy, and also none other than the third man. His name escapes me right now, but unfortunately it has seen two of the Scotsmen fall behind. Jared Love is the leader in that going into the season finale next Thursday at Donington Park. But here on screen right now, it is the Scottish Resistance in full display. And walking all the way through, Ross Young is the third name, if my memory serves me correctly, that I'm thinking of. But right now, Carl Roy doing everything right to hold off Noakes. But as they head on the round, well, we get a quick replay, ladies and gentlemen, of what exactly happened between Zilka and Barker. So this was the pair battling their way down into at the turn 10 chicane. It was Zilka looking around the outside of Barker, and he made his way on through side to side. Great respectful racing. Zilka got the better run out the corner, and then Barker over the rise. A little bit of contact there, but did Barker turn in on Zilka, or did Zilka turn in on Barker, or did they just merge? And then Zilka just literally went out the race like that. Well, not quite sure what's happened there to Hendrik Zilka, but that was it. And Jack Barker carried on there, but definitely not the best of camera angles to dissect it, but that's the way it went. And unfortunately for Hendrik Zilkas, we're looking forward to seeing what would have come in the next chapter in that story. Meanwhile, we come back to your live racing, and Anstis versus Sharples. Darren Sharples still trying to find a way past Nathan Anstis in the battle of the two Porsches for what would be 11th place in the Pro class. And right now, Nathan Anstis refuses to budge as Matthew Croft looks for a move. Here they go over the hill, and Axis Sports Bandits driver on the inside. He'll take that place of a Sharples for now, gets ahead, and well, great opportunities from there from the 3-1-3. But what's Matthew Croft going to do at this point? Is he now going to push Anstis onwards, or is he going to find that Sharples is going to force him to go absolutely defensive? Well, if I know Darren, I think right now he will want to try and chew off a bit more of this. But in the meantime, as they're coming down the hill, no change line in towards the S's. And for Thomas Pugh, he suddenly has Carl Roy behind him. Well, this is a turn. In fact, Thomas Pugh's had a bit of an off track recently. And here's a quick replay to explain. So for Thomas Pugh, this was going on to a new lap. This was going on to lap 36 at turn 1. Took some grass on entry there. That will not help the front left grip up at all. Carried all the speed and too much more. And suddenly Carl Roy arrived on the scene just like that. And well, Carl Roy now on the attack here for third place. And well, the battle for the final spot of the Pro Podium, as Jared Love spots it as well, the mistake from Pugh. Good eyes from you, Jared. Catching it just at the same time as we have here. And as they make the way on around right now, the 352 of Thomas Pugh looks so set for that third place. And suddenly now he's got two Ferraris and a Porsche all beckoning for it as they head up towards lap 37. As they make the way towards the summit, meanwhile, Mikey Stewart on the attack versus Luke Sherlock. And well, if he can take that full place, it will help Mikey out considerably. It will just help him hold a bit more of a gap by comparison. And it would suddenly mean that he would have what would be a gap there of a grand total of, well, the best part of 50 points between himself and Hayden Young going into the season finale. So this place will prove very valuable to him if he can take it off a Sherlock. And will Sherlock defend it hard here? Well, the answer is going to be into turn 1. No, but he doesn't need to there. Instead, he tried to beat Stewart on the brakes, but in his hubris, he's made a mistake there. And Mikey Stewart will not make a mistake, looking up the inside through 2 into 3. And well, he'll take that move quite successfully there. But now will Luke Sherlock come back at him? We're right on board briefly, but you can see that gap has opened up quite a bit. I think that battle is going to stop there. And we will stop looking at it for now at least, because coming down into the chicane, Pugh, Roy, then it's Noakes and Williams, and Archie Williams right now having to make his way through, albeit they both have to make their way past a car that's going to lap down, and that is the car there of Tom Wheeler, who right now, and Jordan Butler with him. In fact, that was Butler being passed, and Tom Wheeler has used it as was a catalyst to make a move. So the battle for 8th place in club is reignited by the pros coming up through. You couldn't make it up. It's constantly back and forth here. Tom Wheeler takes too much over its curb, and Jordan Butler there on the outside backed off in the nick of time. As always, there would have been contact between the two of them, and it would have been contact that would have seen Jordan Butler pushed all the way off the rope. And it would have been a very unfortunate into his race. I suspect it would have been a barrier tap there, if so, but not quite so. Tom Wheeler in the end being able to keep it together, and Jordan Butler being very aware of what was going on. But as they head onwards, well, in the foreground of the camera shot, the battle for third place on the lead lap, Hugh versus Roy, and Noakes is now 1.3 seconds behind it. So he's dropped off a little bit. He's still got Archie Williams, but I suspect that drop off is because of Williams trying to make the move here. And Thomas Noakes right now, understandably, this race is going from good to great to bad to backwards to decent. It really is all over the shop for him right now. And where things would have finished as they currently stand, well, what you would see is that suddenly the gap between Wheeler and Noakes going into the season finale would be just shy of 60 points. So Harvey Wheeler would have a bit of an advantage going into that finale. And definitely keep him quite comfortable. Knowing all we need to do is finish behind Noakes, 1 or 2 places to be able to take the crown. Meanwhile, Max Wheeler versus Steve Hobbs, and well, I think the two McLaren drivers here are going to duke it out this time. Max Wheeler looking around the outside, and Steve Hobbs there holds his inside line for now, takes plenty of curb and a bit of grass with it as a souvenir, and well, Max Wheeler's going to be a bit more inventive next time around. That did not work. Meanwhile, Tom Wheeler versus Jordan Butler. Through turn 1 they go. Butler looking left, looking right, and still can't find a way past. He was side by side going to turn 1, but coming over the hill, they've now got the presence behind him of Harvey Wheeler, and they'll see a blue flag. And well, I think for Jordan Butler right now, he'll be saying, Harvey, just leave me alone. I want to get this move done. But unfortunately, the lead lap driver will have the prerogative there to make a move on them when the time is right. And Jordan Butler makes a bit of a ham sandwich out of turn 5. And well, unfortunately, he's not going to be able to butter up another move here at the moment. He is going to fall back. And at this point, he's going to let Harvey Wheeler go, knowing there's no point in really trying to prevent the inevitable. But as he lets Wheeler go, be hoping that Wheeler can be a bit of a nuisance in turn for Tom Wheeler in the meantime, as he will be there. As meanwhile, Nathan Anstis and Matthew Croft together, and Croft, who cleared Darren Sharp, was earlier on, back on lap 35, 5 laps afterwards. Now he's trying to take Nathan Anstis for 11th place in Pro, as we show you the class standings on the left hand side of your picture for a little bit of time. And well, no move there for Matthew Croft, at least at this time, still staying behind. But as the drivers make their way out turns 6 and 7, 8 minutes still left on the clock, and we come to Thomas Pugh, Carl Roy, Thomas Noakes and Archie Williams all still together, and Noakes is slowly rejoining the battle for third place, and we put emphasis on that because he is taking it a tenth at a time, but Archie Williams in turn is taking it a tenth at a time to close up to Noakes. So they could all suddenly come together before this race is over. It could all change once again. Meanwhile, Steve Hobbs, Max Wheeler, these two are absolutely nose to tail going in towards turn number 1 in the battle for 8th place in the Pro class. There are battles everywhere you look at the moment. And some of the bigger battles towards the front have calmed down in the classes. Although saying that, here's one of intrigue for you, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Kenyon, club leader of His Step Racing. Last couple of laps, that gap between him and Grant Miller has come down to 1.5 seconds. There is Miller, you can see in the rear of the picture, in his Phoenix Racing at Red McLaren. He is catching quite quickly. Could he be there right at the end? Because our leader, Adam Watson, who comes into the picture in the background, he goes on to lap 41, and with 7 minutes to go, he's got this one plus another 4 to go. And at this rate, we believe it's another 4 to go. It may be for it to be very tight, in fact, to see where we get 5 or 4 more laps. But either way, could we see a battle for the club win right towards the very end? Has Grant Miller found the pace that put him on pole? And is he going to be able to attack what will be Martin Kenyon at the very end to try and take that maiden win of the season in class? Well, that we'll look forward to seeing whether it does materialise. Meanwhile, in the interleague battle, Hayden Young, 4.5 seconds ahead of Sight Anthony at the moment. Anthony is not as quick as Hayden Young. Hayden right now is lapping 3 tenths a lap faster and is setting personal best after personal best, although not that time round. As we do see, here comes Max Wheeler on the inside of Steve Hobbs, goes to move into the final quarter, and well, I think Max Wheeler may be ahead now down towards turn 1, but Hobbs is going to look on the outside here as Duskower definitely is now settling nicely in, and Max Wheeler will take that 8th place in Pro at least for now. Meanwhile, the battle between Tom Wheeler and Jordan Butler, well, Jordan Butler still stuck behind Tom Wheeler for that 8th place in the club class, but as it all plays out, well, all these drivers continue to push onwards, and well, it's absolutely brilliant, no doubt about it. Wherever you look, we've got plenty of fighting, and Thomas Pugh right now looking very much set for the third place. We maintain that gap of 8 tenths. Vault 9, they're saying the battle for the overall lead rages on, and well, for Adam Watson, definitely right now, I think it is a bit of a lonely battle for the lead, but he is at 16.7 seconds ahead of Tim Probert. Although he makes a mistake there, does Watson? Surely not. He's not going to make a big error like that right towards the very end. He makes a small error of it, but that's how quickly you can make a small mistake, and we'll have to wait and see what materialises out of it. Tim Probert, meanwhile, we'll notice that gap will come down by the best part of what will be about, say, a second or two, but still, he'll know that it's a small mistake for Adam Watson. It's not one that could be a tragedy. Wheeler and Hobbs still fighting side by side, and as they make the way through, Wheeler keep it ahead for now. 5 minutes left to go, and well, further back down the order, Jordan Butler, he has got ahead of Tom Wheeler. He's actually found his way past this time, but not if Tom Wheeler goes back up the inside in towards turn number 2 and 3. He's going to go around the outside. Jordan Butler's still there. He fights for the space and look his way over the back, and that's Hayden Young. And right now, Young wants to get clear, and in the end, Tom Wheeler backs out, and so does Jordan Butler, and Hayden Young risks it all there. And well, that you can understand why the interleader was only a 4-second gap to Sight Anthony. He does not want to be held up whatsoever, but immediately, as soon as he clears them, the battle between Wheeler and Butler rages on again as he looks around the outside, and the adversary by Freewheeler Racing Driver throwing everything at this, and it's not working out at the moment. He's just lost out a little bit, and Jordan Butler able to make that move into turn 1. He's made it stick for now as they drag race away down the back straight. But as they do, what about the battle for third place that comes to the end of the back straight? It's Pugh, Roy, Noakes, and Archie Williams is 1.7 seconds back. So it does seem as though that Williams might be out of this fight for now, as we do see Thomas Pugh holding on to third, just digging in as long as he can. And as he does so, well, right now for Thomas Pugh, this third place is going to be the hardest he's earned all season, if not in his sim racing career, as Carl Roy and Thomas Noakes definitely still itching as much as they possibly can to get past. But unfortunately, they can't scratch it away. As Thomas Noakes gives a better run, looks up the inside, it's turn 3, is this done? It is, he gets through into 4th place in the Pro Class for Noakes. It's a small error from Roy coming out of turn 1, and it's all done there for now, or is it? Because of course after the S's it's going to be a couple of small sprints in terms of straight, and will Carl Roy maybe able to come back here in the route towards turn number 6, but 2.5 attempts is the gap, and well, we see Harvey Wheeler still further 3 seconds behind in the rear of the picture. There he is, and well, understanding right now he's not close enough to get involved, but he would like to be, but he's got to grind that time down with 3.5 minutes to go. And our overall leader, Adam Watson, goes on to lap 44. So, with 3.5 minutes left on the clock, we believe it's 2 laps to go now. We will have 44 and then 55th lap to complete the day. And Adam Watson right now fully in control. What about the club lead battle? Well, here is Martin Kenyon, but look who's behind him. Grant Miller has caught up, and Miller's all over the back right now. And well, for Martin Kenyon, it's not going to put him at risk of losing the championship lead by any stretch of the imagination, but he won't want to give Miller his maiden win of the season. Kenyon would love to take his 4th win of the season if he can, but here they come on towards turn number 6, and right now Miller has got close. He's been there a couple of times. Indeed, over the course of the season, he had multiple opportunities for a win, but it has never quite come together. But can this be the day where Grant Miller finally lands that maiden win of the season? Well, he's got to pass Martin Kenyon to do so, and well, Kenyon and Miller, we saw their heroics at the Hockenheim Ring right at the start of the season, how hard they fought, and in the end Kenyon got the upper hand. But here today, it's Grant Miller who's got the cards gradually coming to him, but he's still got to make the pass no matter how close he gets. It's not over until he's got ahead and sees that checkered flag. With the pair having a gap of the best part of 7 seconds to Matthew Massey, who after going the longest every club driver came out in 3rd place and is looking quite happy with it. Spectre Racing drives 6 seconds clear of Alexander Vingmark, and therefore looking to convert this now into a podium. And well, for Matthew Massey, it has been some time since we've seen him on the podium. His last podium coming in round number 3 of a 2nd place finish. So it won't be his best result, but he'll be up there as one of his best ones of the season. As Adam Watson goes on to another lap, well, it proves I cannot count, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we've got 46 laps, not 45, and indeed my mathematics day seems to have gone completely astray. You have to forgive me for that. But in terms of the fights out there, well, take your pick in terms of every fight that is going on. And while leader not too far away from the club leaders right now, but I don't think you'll get a chance to lap them, given they are about 7 seconds up the road as they clear the S's, and Watson shortly does so as well. As Kenyon still holds that gap of around 7 tenths, he now starts to come behind Darren Sharples, who in turn is behind Peter Holt. So is this traffic going to hurt Kenyon? I think it might do here, so this could change. Thomas Pugh, meanwhile, in 3rd in the Pro Class and overall. He's got Noakes right behind him. Roy has been dropped, so Noakes is now trying to squeeze his way onto the podium, and if he can, well, it'll be very beneficial for him, but he's still got to hurry in order to do that. And if he was to take the podium, he would end up going into the season finale 35 points behind Harvey Wheeler, so it'd still be Wheeler's advantage, but it would be Noakes who would close up just that little bit more. But we'll need that definitely and want every point he can take from this point onwards. Still, he's got this lap plus 1 more as Adam Watson goes on to the final lap of the race. And in fact, well, I was wrong about how far he was away from the club leaders, because right now he's coming right onto the back of them. And well, we can hope that Miller's going to be lapped here by Watson. If so, well, could we see the club lead all come down to who's on the lead lap and who's not to the very end? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But Miller this time very close to the back of Kenyon as they're coming down. The night lights go on here. We're in night hour now as they roar the way through the S's. And well, you can see that Grant Miller absolutely throwing everything at it, but a little bit oversteer there coming out to turn 5. That's going to cost him. As meanwhile, we've had an instant for Jordan Butler and Cy Anthony, and we've got black flag for Tom Wheeler. Well, we can't cut away to that right now, ladies and gentlemen. We're staying with this battle to the end, and as we do so, off camera, Noakes and Pure fight each other as well. Well, we will get a look back at that if we miss it now, and as our leaders in the club class make their way onwards, well, will we see Miller look for the move? Well, no, Grant Miller backing off there right now, weaving from side to side here. And as he does so, well, I would have thought he would have stayed on a straight line, but I think he's letting this go to Martin Kenyon, unless he's going to lunge at the very last moment. Well, He may have an opportunity to do so here, but the answer seems to be no. But then again, they've got one more lap after this, and perhaps right now he's trying to say to Adam Watson, don't lap us. But as they make the way onto their final lap, for Adam Watson, what a drive it's been today for the Altitude Freedom esports driver, and he crossed the line, taking his third win of the season in dominant fashion by 15 seconds ahead of Tim Probert, who will shortly come through to bring on home his best result of the season, second place in Pro overall for Send It Racing. But who is going to be third? Will it be Noakes? Will it be Roy? Will it be Pugh? The answer is it's going to be Thomas Noakes. He has found his way past the end, and Carl Roy with it. So Thomas Noakes will take third. He will level up the score as much as he can as he finishes on the podium in Pro today. Roy is fourth. Pugh is fifth, Archie Williams is sixth, Harvey Wheeler is seventh place at the end, and then it will be Hayden Young to bring on home back-to-back victories in the Interclass. 2 in a row there for Hayden Young, and well, that's exactly what he needs to do. Max Wheeler ninth, 9 seconds behind him in the end as he comes on down the hill, and then it will be Steve Hobbs who comes on home to complete the top 10 ahead of Cy Anthony. Run up there in the Interclass and into the barrier there. Something's broken on the car. Casper Brotner comes across the line in 12th ahead of Nathan Astis and Matthew Croft, and then we will have a further 9 seconds before we do get to this man. And for Jake Muttett today, we'll give him a round of applause because it is his first inter-podium of the season, third place in class, and 2.3 seconds ahead of what will be Mikey Stewart as our overlay is broken, ladies and gentlemen, so please ignore that. We are seeing him come to the finish line. Luke Sherlock will come on home in what will be 17th place ahead of Pete Holt, but will it be Kenyon or will it be Miller at the line? It is going to be Martin Kenyon who holds on for the club victory ahead of Grant Miller, and it will be his fifth win of the season, not his fourth, his fifth win of the season. What a drive there from the Pitstep Racing driver, and who will be third in the club class will have finished the lap down behind our race leader overall. It will be Matthew Massey, and well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe everyone has seen the finish line in this race. My goodness me, what a race it has been, no doubt about it. And as all the drivers do start to cool and calm on down, well, it's been an exciting race all the way from start to finish. So much excitement, in fact, that right at the finish, it has broken our overlay. And, well, we are trying to get that back as best as we possibly can. And you will have to forgive us, ladies and gentlemen. It sometimes does happen in the heat of all the exciting racing action. And, well, I think we might be getting the overlay back shortly. And when we do, well, it'll be great to see it return, no doubt about it. But at least for now, it seems to have given up on us. And, well, we can't quite show you those race results yet until we get it back. So that's why we do want to revive it from the ashes. But please bear with us, it will come back eventually as all the drivers now pull the way into the pit lane. And, well, as they do, well, Adam Watson, they're celebrating, burning the rear tyres there, absolutely laying down a load of rubber and absolutely over the moon with his performance, and taking that third win that has escaped him for some time this season, but he's finally made it happen here today at Road Atlanta and doing it absolutely brilliant style. But as the overlay does come back, well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. It went away for a little while, but it's finally come back. Well, just before we do take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, we need to take a look back at some big moments, including what happened to Jordan Butler right at the end of the race. So, this was a battle between Jordan Butler and I do believe, well, what exactly happened here? Oh, there was contact, and Cy Andrews was collected as part of that. Was with David Pilcher there, the logistical nightmare racer driver, and I think, well, in fact, that was not David Pilcher, that was David Young, my apologies, and Tom Wheeler got caught up in that as well. So, David Pilcher came out, and David Young came out of nowhere in that battle. We did not realise how close he was getting to it, but this is what it looked like on board from David Young's perspective. So at the time, battling with Cy Anthony, and then you can see Jordan Butler. Ooh, that adds a bit more context to that. So that actually helps us understand. Butler in the end trying to go round the outside of David Young and got clipped on his front bumper there. And, well, Tom Wheeler ends up being in the scene of the incident as well as part of all that. What did that look like from Wheeler's perspective? Well, this is him making his way down. So he's quite a way back here. And you're going to see Butler take some grass there under braking. That's what proves what happened. So Wheeler took the grass on the rear right tyre. That sent him on a collision course with the front of Young's car. And then, unfortunately, Butler slid in Cy Anthony. And Cy Anthony became the third part of the ping-pong effect and collected Tom Wheeler, and that's how their race all ended, with everyone getting elbows out between them. But as for Thomas Noakes, well, this is how he made his way ahead of Thomas Pugh, and it was a hard-fought battle, but in the end, Thomas Pugh went a bit wide out of turn number 1, and this was on the final lap, and Noakes went all in for it into turns 3 and 4, side by side. They came over the hill, and Noakes in the end did not give in at all. He made that happen. What a brave move there from Thomas Noakes. That was the only chance he was going to get to stay at third place in Pro, and he took it. Did he take it? Meanwhile, Carl Roy then made the move on Thomas Pugh right at the very end. And, well, this was going through turn 6 into 7. Battle of the sister teams for Axis Sim Sports. The Sim Coach driver ahead of the SimWorks driver until he wasn't on the exit of turn 7. And Pugh went a bit wide. And that enabled Carl Roy to squeeze on through. That's how he got the job done. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, all the brilliant battles, no doubt about it, come to a close, and we head back to your live circuit side pictures to bring you the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here we go, starting, of course, with the overall finishing positions. And as we can see, an absolutely exciting battle all the way through to the very end. And Adam Watson bringing on home a very comfortable victory for Altitude Frame Esports by 14.6 seconds ahead of Tim Probert for Send It Racing, who put together his best performance of the season. And, well, for the 3-1-2 driver, that performance definitely up there, matching his previous best on the previous round at Magny-Cours. Another second place in the bag. Behind the Send It Racing McLaren was Thomas Noakes there for UKSimRacing when it was looking to be all going backwards, where he was able to fight his way forwards, taking a very valuable third place in Pro and overall ahead of the Ferrari of Axis Sim Sport with SimWorks' Carl Roy and the Mercedes of Axis Sim Sports with Sim Coach's Thomas Pugh. Roy's teammate Archie Williams there finishing in 6th place, a further 3 tenths behind, not quite on the pace of the 3 drivers in front, was able to stay with them through the fighting, and Harvey Wheeler almost got into the back of that battle after what seemed to be something going wrong on his second stint. We don't know what happened to Harvey Wheeler, but what we do know is that he had difficulty. He lost the best part of 15 seconds and recovered it all to finish in 7th place for Versa Rapid by Freewheeler Racing. Hayden Young took the Inter victory in 8th place there for Send It Racing, his second win in a row, a huge result for the 246 Porsche driver, ahead of Max Wheeler for Versa Fast by Freewheeler Racing and Sim Coach Steve Hobbs, who completed the top 10. In 11th place, it was Cy Anthony, run up there in the Interclass for UKSimRacing Hamilton. But to be fair, he put in an absolutely brilliant show today to finish 11th. Had a Casper Brutner for Old Dudes and Cars Vintage, with Nathan Anstis for UKSimRacing Hamilton a little bit further behind. It was only 3 tenths between Anstis and Matthew Croft, with Croft in the end losing out for Axis Sim Sport Bandits. But he was comfortably 10 seconds ahead of Jake Muttett, who took his maiden podium of the season in the Interclass there with 15th overall for Phoenix Racing Blue. It was 2 seconds back to Axis Sim Sports with Sim Coaches Mikey Stewart. And then Luke Charlotte completing that top 5 there in the Interclass, making up for a difficult qualifying performance, although losing out to Stewart right at the end, and P-Top was a further 9 seconds behind there for Send It Racing Bulls. Martin Kenyon, the club leader, and the championship, making it his 5th win of the season for Piztech Racing, but goodness me, did he have some pressure on him on that final lap from Grant Miller, or the closing laps, but the Phoenix Racing Red driver could not find a way through, even when he was given the chance to, as a result of Adam Watson saying, I'll let you guys go to the final lap. But they completed your top 20, and with it they completed all those who finished on the lead lap, and then off of the lead lap, a lap down, Darren Sharples, Jack Barker, Matthew Massey, your third place finish in the club class. Well done to Matthew for a great podium result there for Spectre Racing. He was ahead of Beta Frost's Alexander Wingler, another top 5 there from the Norwegian driver. He's definitely making some surprises this season, and Stephen Wilkinson completing the top 5 for the Spectre Racing UK team in the club class. He was 25th overall ahead of John Harley, with James Connolly, David Young, Ryan Clark, and Tom Wheeler completing the top 30. And it was also a lap down to Jordan Butler in 31st place, and 3 laps down to David Pilcher. And we did have 2 retirees in this race, Hendrik Zilka and Ryan Littlemore. And then to the classes we come, because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we can see, in Pro, firstly, Adam Watson, your winner in the end. An untroubled win after a pole position by a comfortable 2 tenths margin, and the Altitude Frame Esports driver able to run away, with Tim Probert taking 2nd place to Send It Racing and leaving that final podium spot to be fought over by 4 drivers. Thomas Noakes was the one who got the upper hand in the end for MK Sim Sports, ahead of Carl Roy, Thomas Pugh and Archie Williams. Harvey Wheeler was almost there to be part of that fight. He just needed a couple more laps after his difficulties in the early part of the second stint, but the Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing driver was ahead of the sister team driver Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing of Max Wheeler, his dad. We did see Steve Hobbs and 9th there for Sim Coach, ahead of Casper Brotner, who ran off the top 10. And behind the Old Dudes and Cars and Vintage driver, it was UKSimRacing Hamilton's Nathan Anstis, Matthew Croft for Axis and Sport Bandits, and then Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia's Darren Sharples, who finished a lap down, but full of fighting every step of the day. Inter, meanwhile, we did see in the second mile classes Hayden Young take a 2nd win and a 2nd win in a row, and the Send It Racing driver absolutely will be gloating about that. A huge result for him. And, well, Cy Anthony, meanwhile, 12 seconds behind for UKSimRacing Hamilton. The gap would have been much tighter if we're not for that late instance at the chicane. Jake Muttett in the end closed up a little bit, but the most important part was he took his maiden podium this season for Phoenix Racing Blue. Hard graft made that happen today, and the McLaren drive really came alive as the race went on. Mikey Schutz at full place at Access Sports with Sim Coach, but an early mistake proving absolutely crucial to undermine his race through the S's, but he did recover well to fourth place, and he still is the championship leader comfortably going into the season finale. And Luke Sharp, fifth place there for Darkwing Racing and overturning that difficult qualifying performance. Pete Holt, sixth place there, only 8 seconds behind, but a lap ahead of Jack Barker for Made Racing after a great start. Gradually fell down the order due to a bit of a drop off in pace, but fought hard every step of the way. And it was also a lap down for John Harley for Spectre Racing Pete Murby, and it was a retirement sadly for Hendrik Zilke for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia. And in for the club class, last but by no means least, and as we can see, Martin Kenyon, your winner in the club class for Pitstop Racing ahead of Grant Miller, only by 1.5 tenths. He came down to the very final corner of the final lap, and Phoenix Racing Red Stripe, they're not quite able to take his maiden win yet, but perhaps in the season finale at Donington he will find it. Matthew Massey was the first to finish a lap down, rounding off the podium there, and a return to the podium. His last one a long time ago. The Spectre Racing drive ahead of Beta Frost's Alexander Vingmark and Stephen Wilkinson completing at the top 5 there, and a great drive for Wilkinson all in. The Simcast Racing UK drive followed by James Conley and David Young, with Ryan Clark, Tom Wheeler and John Butler completing the top 10. And behind the Spectre Racing Feet Simworks driver, it was 3 laps down to David Pilcher for Simcast Racing UK, and we had our sole retiree of Ryan Littlemore for Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, but it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time, we'll be post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, so don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss what our drivers got to say about racing at Road Atlanta today. We'll see you very soon. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. One driver into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Fords, for the Ford and the Corvettes, the two Americans I should say. And
with those two Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Harvey up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind Tim Perry under pressure and Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here I think now is just hold on to second, and if needed he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillison's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillison's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillison goes on the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillison backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews. And we're going to begin with the man who finished at the very top of the time tower today, the man who put it on pole as well by considerable margin, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Adam Watson. Adam, good evening to you. What a performance for yourself today. Pole position by a couple of attempts, and in the end in the race, taking victory by the best part of 15 seconds. I mean, you were faultless today. You must be proud of this one.
Yeah, it's a really good track, and obviously I'm really enjoying the McLaren, so it's really nice to, obviously when both of them come together. I wasn't expecting the pace difference between me and especially Thomas, because he's been one of the quickest ones for the season, so definitely wasn't expecting to pull the gap that I did.
Well, a bit of an unexpected gap perhaps, but let's wind it all the way back to the beginning. In qualifying, taking that pole lap in the end, it looks as though you were very happy with your lap out there. I mean, how did you find the time at Road Atlanta for those curious as to why you were so rapid?
It's all about knowing your turning points. So from what I realized, especially in the race, was I was getting a lot of time in turn 3. So as it comes off the hill and you crest, it's knowing your turning points for that one, and then your turning points for like turn 5, the uphill right-hander, and knowing how much curb you can take. So it's just knowing your turning points and having confidence to carry the speed. It's like, especially in turn 3, it was just like a little break and a downshift for me, and I was gaining 3-4 tenths on people.
Oh, goodness me. Well, gaining attempts just like that is absolutely impressive, no doubt about it. And in the end, setting that absolutely staggering lap by the best part of 2.2 tenths. So into the race, we'll see you have a very good start. And in the end, it looked as though as soon as you nailed that start, you were able to gradually break away from the field. I presume that was always the plan, to leave everyone with their jaws dropping as you went into turn 1.
I was unexpectedly, it's just like the first 2 laps, especially when I was on cold tyres, I was pulling like quite a big gap. So I don't know if it was Thomas was not confident on the cold tyres or just something, but like at the end of lap 1 I had over a second lead. It was, for some reason, I guess on cold tyres, and I don't mind the car sliding around, but the plan was to try and get a gap of like 1.5 seconds. I'll just push that, and then once I was at 1.5 I'll start fuel saving. But yeah, no, so I got to like 1.2 after 1 lap, and I was like, okay, we'll just build it to see what we can get for a couple of laps, and we got it to like 2.5 seconds. I was like, I'll just start fuel saving now.
So at that point, once you'd started building up the gap and, like you say, fuel saving, of course, the next biggest challenge with Road Atlanta being such a short lap and so many cars being out there was negotiating the traffic. Did that perhaps influence the way you drove or influence your strategy at all? Because you did go as one of, I believe, the longest of our drivers out there on strategy.
Not really. It's just obviously it's knowing how to deal with traffic. I think a lot of people, they come up traffic too quick. So like when I came up to some cars, I would lift early into some corners and then come and get them on the exit. And so I was running like a bit of a less wing than probably a lot of people are. So down the straights, I was able to get them into like especially the long straight. But it's all about just setting up corners, and so as soon as I set corners and got on the straights, it was fine.
I see. Well, that little bit of straight line speed advantage, like you mentioned, really helping out just that little bit and giving you the grunt you needed to make your way on past. But as the race went on, we saw you continue to extract the gap. And whilst Tim Probert was throwing down some really good laps of his own, he wasn't quite able to match yourself. I mean, how do you as well, at such a circuit where consistency, but you have to at the same time drive on the limit all the time to find that lap time, how do you maintain that balance? Because I can imagine for some, it may not be the same for yourself. It's almost like you're walking on a tightrope or driving on it.
Yeah, it was interesting because like after I pitted, because I wasn't fuel saving after my pit stop, I was struggling to get my brake point right for the down at like turn 10. I just kept missing out going too deep because I'd been fuel saving that much. It was just like coasting and braking, so the car was fine. Then obviously as soon as you stop fuel saving, you carry a lot more speed. So it took me a bit to get back used to knowing where I was braking like for qualifying and stuff. But around here, I said it's a track I really enjoy, and obviously doing endurance races since I've started iRacing has definitely helped. Knowing how it's just all about being consistent, you just don't over push corners that you don't really need to, especially as tires start wearing out. You just gradually just bring it back, knowing that corners are going to be further and further in.
Oh, I see. It's interesting there, you having that difficulty initially to readjust to your normal or your fast pace with the lap approach and the muscle memory, but it just goes to show how important that muscle memory is. Alas, at the end of it, bringing it home at your third win of the season, and I have to admit, you've had one of those seasons which has been very much, it's either been 100%, I take victories, or you've missed out on podiums, or you've not finished rounds. Has it felt as though it's a bit of a missed opportunity season, perhaps? Because with this pace, surely you could have been in contention for the championship.
Yeah, I joined the season late, which obviously didn't help, and then like I missed last week because as a real life job I work as a race mechanic, so I was at British GT. I was never going to make it back. But the rounds I have done, yeah, it's been great. The ones I have won, but definitely I do feel like there's been missed opportunities, especially like Suzuka, where I made my own mistake. I stayed out on the wets when I shouldn't have, and then got down to. Obviously, when I got on the slicks, I just over pushed, especially when I was on cold tires trying to keep Harvey behind me, which obviously then I got damaged, and then I was just over pushing after that point. So there's definitely been times where I should have done better, but at the end of the day, I knew because I was coming into a championship late that I was aiming for like a top 5, but the rounds I've missed hasn't helped. So definitely just trying to see what I can do, and you know, it is what it is. We'll see what we can do. Like, I've definitely signed up for next season, so it's all about just seeing what we can do for next season.
Oh, 100%. However, don't rule out this season yet, because presuming you are going to be on the grid for Donington Park next week, at the moment, provisionally, the standing state with this third win of the season, you're now on 416 points. It puts you mathematically 111 points behind Max Wheeler in 5th. So theoretically, you could still achieve a top 5, but you would need results to go your way. So if you are on the grid at Donington Park, is it going to be your 4th win of the season?
Donington is another track that I like, but I've not driven it in the McLaren before, so it's definitely going to be an interesting track. We're definitely going to try for our 5th win of the season, but it's a heat format, I think. It's a different format, so if it is a heat format and there's 2 races, we'll try and go for our 5th and 6th.
Oh, a fair play. We look forward to that. But just before I do let you go, Adam, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, just like the 3M, Alchi 3M esports team, obviously all the sponsors, 3M, Inspire, just everyone to do with it, and it's been really good help. And give a shout out to the Simcast team. It's a team which I've been helping for about over a year now, nearly 2 years. So it's been good to obviously race with them because I'm only one for altitude here for this series. So it's been good to be with them and giving them advice and help.
Well, they'll definitely appreciate the shout out, as will your teammates at Altitude at 3M Esports. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join me in the interim. Thank you for your time this evening, and well done on bringing home another brilliant win for this season. We look forward to seeing you at Donington Park and seeing whether you can end the season on a high. But until then, savour the moment and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a happy Adam Watson. But of course, a bit of a bittersweet victory in the fact that it really goes to show you the pace he's had this season and the fact. And if things hadn't gone wrong in some of the previous rounds, such as Suzuka, then he could be right up there for a top 5. Yet, plenty of positives to talk about. And I really do like the way when he talked about the qualifying lap there, where he was gaining the time. It was particularly on those corner exits at turn number 5, for example, gaining a couple of attempts there. And also the fact the setup of the car was intentionally made to have a little bit less rear wing in order to give him that speed advantage on the back straight, a natural contributor to a slightly quicker lap, but also enable him to clear cars, particularly when he's coming up behind drivers to put a lap down, able to clear them more comfortably into the braking zone for the chicane. So all these small tweaks definitely giving a little bit of an advantage. But for Adam Watson, that's what you got to do when you are one of the fastest drivers in the Pro Class. You've got to go all in, and what Donington Park is going to try and go all in for what will be his final win of the season. And just to clarify the comment he made there about the heat format, as far as we are aware, it is still a 1-hour race at Donington Park, but the lobby is having to be set up in a particular way because of the settings on iRacing, where there's not enough garages for 60 GT3 cars should we have the entire grid come out. So that's why drivers do think it's a heat format when realistically is actually still 60 minutes of a single race at Donington Park. So we just wanted to clarify that up there, and all the drivers will be reminded of that going into season fly. It's a 1-hour race to complete the season, and Adam Watson will be looking to see if he can bring on home that final win of the season, and we wish him the best luck in his preparations. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another interview. We'll be right back. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now make our way to the Interclass. And if we're going to hear from our winner in Pro, we've got to hear from our winner in Inter, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Hayden Young. Good evening to you, Hayden. How does that feel? Right. 2 in a row.
Mate, we tried. I really had fun. That was great. That was really good.
Oh, indeed, a huge performance for yourself. But I mean, in qualifying, it looked as though Mikey was going to have the upper advantage today. How was qualifying for you?
It wasn't too bad. I genuinely thought I'd got it, and then I don't know where he pulled that from, because he was, sort of 4 or 5 tenths off, and then he banged that lap in. It was a cracking lap. But yeah, I genuinely thought I'd got it. But yeah, we weren't too bad. I maybe could have got another 10th out of it, maybe. But yeah, there wasn't a lot. It was good. It was all right.
Well, a decent qualifying lap then, but of course the race is where all the points are made. And we saw in the early stages, it looked as though, as much as you were trying to catch up to Mikey, there was always going to be a pro in a way, and then suddenly you had a clear run at him. Yeah,
I knew no matter the qualifying, I kind of knew I'd had the pace to. I've worked on my consistency, and especially turn 7. You take turn 7 correct and you can get so much speed. So that's where I just had the overrun, and the Porsche is so quick in a straight line. So quick, so I just thought, right, I'll take advantage of that, and literally drove past him.
Well, you blasted past, but at that point it wasn't quite over, because of course you then had to try and break away until he made a bit of a mistake of his own. Did you notice that suddenly the gap between you and the interfield just went from what was a couple of tenths or seconds to a lot more?
I did. I looked, and I thought, where's he gone? I was like, he's gone. Yes. But I didn't know it. I didn't see what exactly happened. So, but I'll watch the replay in a bit. Definitely.
Well, it went a bit wrong for Mikey, but you couldn't take your foot off the gas, because we did see a few pro drivers keeping you in close company. But how did you negotiate them? Because I bet a part of you said, like at Magny-Cours, I want to fight them, but another part of you goes, actually, there's only one thing you need to do, win the race in class.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see Cy was behind me, and I can't remember who was in front of me. Was it Hobbs?
Yep, Steve Hobbs.
Steve Hobbs. Steve Hobbs was in front of me in the McLaren, and I knew I was quicker. I was just saving fuel, and I thought, right, I've got to go, and made the move and did. Felt really good.
Now, on the feeling of good, of course, you mentioned moments ago this Porsche is so rapid on the straights, but how was it through the corners as well? Did you have a little bit of everything?
Yeah, it just seemed to work there. It seemed to really work at that track. It's very strange. I can't put my finger on it at the minute with the Porsche. It just feels good. It feels really good. There was a couple of corners that just a bit understeery, but I think that's just what Road Atlanta is. So, but no, feels good.
Well, a good feeling Porsche, and strategy-wise today, you were one of the drivers who went the longest of all, 30 laps on your opening stint. Was that always the plan?
Yeah. I mean, it's more difficult if you're not behind someone. Well, I was sat behind Steve Ops for a while, saving fuel. I was lifting way into the 200-meter mark for the braking zone. So, but yeah, save the fuel, and I thought I'd save the tyres, and especially going into that chicane there at the end, it's quite harsh on your tyres, and yeah, went quite long. I didn't expect to go as long as I did compared to Sai, to be honest with you, because he was behind. Was it Croft? Was he behind him for a while?
Yes.
And yeah, so yeah, I expected him to come with me, to be honest, but yeah, good.
And just on site, Anthony, were you worried he was going to catch you?
Yeah. Towards the end, when I got to those the back markers, I can't remember who it was. I think I just had to get past them. I had to, and went around the outside of one of them at turn 3. Was it 4? Yeah, I thought he was going to catch me at that point, so I thought I've got to do it.
I mean, for someone leading the racing class that needs to do the win, when you say you went round the outside of them, I think my interpretation would be is you had to bundle your car past them into probably the tightest part of the circuit.
I did, yes. I just had to go. Well, if I sit behind him, even for half a lap, he's going to be with me. It's only, what was it, 3 seconds, was it? He's going to be with me. So I thought, I've got to move now and put as many cars as I can in between us, and yeah, it worked.
Oh, 100%. It was brave. It was bold. It was absolutely brilliant. And come the end of it all, it's your second win of the season. And gap-wise now in the championship, it provisionally puts you a grand total of, I believe, 21 points behind.
21. Yeah. So I haven't worked that out yet. If I win it, where does Mikey Stewart have to finish to win it? I'll work it all out.
It would be, if you win the race, he would need to finish second to you. If he finished third, you would take it.
Okay, that's it's good to know. I've really enjoyed it. It's good fun.
Well, do you think you can make it 3 in a row at Donington Park?
Yeah, why not? We'll give it the best.
Why not? Fair play. I like that. Straight to the point. You'll give it your best. Well, Hayden.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate.
We look forward to that. But until then, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to tonight?
Yeah, shout out to me, my girlfriend Charlotte. I think she's the good luck charm, to be honest with you. Every time she's here, I seem to win or do a podium. So she's sat behind me. And shout out to the team. Again, always do laps together, and it's great fun. It's great fun. And you, mate, great job, and hopefully speak to you next week.
Oh, well, I'll definitely hold you to that. But whether it'll be as champion or run-up, we'll see. But until then, Hayden, congratulations once again, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
You too, mate. Cheers, buddy.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy and absolutely buzzing Hayden Young. And, well, understandably, he got it all right today. And it's very interesting. I like the way he talks about qualifying. It was just a good lap. Stuart beat him, however. He was a bit surprised that Mikey was able to put that lap together at the very end, but he knew he had the pace to match him in the race, and that's why we saw the two of them fight so early on. Hayden initially had pros between himself and Mikey, but was able to squeeze on through. And after that, with Mikey Stewart having that error through the S's, it opened up the gap. Although conversely, he mentioned the fact towards the end, as he came up behind the traffic, he was worried about sight and see becoming an increasing threat, and in the end had to go for that daring move through turns 2 through to 4, bundling the car over a curb in order to be able to get clear, and it kept him nice and safe versus Sight Anti, who was in the end the best part of 4 seconds behind before his instant that we saw of the chicane. But definitely for Hayden Young, it was a worry, but 2 in a row, he's almost on parity with Mikey Stewart. He's only the best part of 21 points behind. And, well, if Hayden Young was to take the win at 150 points next time out, second place would be worth 135. Third place would be worth 120. So for Mikey Stewart, it really now has become he needs to finish 1 place behind Hayden Young, and Hayden has got to take the win. But can he make it 3 in a row and push destiny as much into his hands as possible then? We'll have to find out, ladies and gentlemen. But with his girlfriend Charlotte by his side, I suspect his good luck charm will be there all the way to the very end. And, well, I suspect it's going to be a very close one next week. But with that, we now head back to the next interview. And, well, who exactly we're going to be with? Well, if we've had our 2 winners of 2 classes, should we have 3 winners from 3 classes? We are going to, ladies and gentlemen. We're heading to Club. We're heading to Martin Kenyon. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as promised and billed, joining me now in the interview room is none other now 5-time winner of the season, Martin Kenyon. Martin, good evening to you. What a race for yourself today. It didn't look as though the win was coming your way immediately, but you've made it happen in the end. Would you say this has been your hardest earned one of the season?
Oh, I'm not too sure, to be fair, because I've been fairly consistent. I wasn't trying to win the race today. I was just trying to finish strong and just finishing on the podium like I've been trying to do all season. So I think it was more down to Grant's bit of misfortune, really, more than anything. He almost had me at the line, but I got the win still.
Well, it sounds like it's a bit of a case of mission failed successfully in taking the win when all you wanted was a strong result, but arguably this is the strongest result you could take. In qualifying, we did see you take third place, 22nd overall. You weren't too far off of Miller's pace. Were you happy with your lap?
Yeah. I've been on holiday this last week, so the only practice I've done is in the half-hour practice and the qualifying itself. So I thought my pace was pretty good, where I wanted to be on the podium at the end of the race. So it was all right.
Oh, fair play. And then when we did go into the race, we did see you have a good start, moving very quickly into second ahead of Matthew Massey, jumping him essentially into the opening corner. And after that, it seems as though you just went to work, although there were a lot of inter-drives between yourself and Grant. Did you try to use that to fuel save as much as possible?
The inter-drivers were being fairly competitive with how they were racing, because I think there was like 5 or 6 of them, like all in a big tight group. So I just backed off and let them sort of wallop each other off the track, and I just minded my own business, try and keep it clean and just mind my own race, really. I knew I had the pace for the guys behind. I think they were at one point, I think Stephen Wilkinson was behind me, and I think Alex Vinmark was behind me as well. But I was pulling away from them and just keeping up with the inters, but letting them battle in front.
See, a bit of a challenging one there, and constantly trying to manage your own gaps whilst also being wary of their fighting. Did that potentially influence your strategy then?
Not really. I was just using their toe and just pounding out the laps, really. Just seeing what would happen, see if Grant would drop back or if he could keep that pace all race, which he could. He got unlucky, so that's what brought us back together at the end. But no, I was just trying to keep it steady.
Well, consistency is always a very valuable asset at Road Atlanta, and you showed that throughout, particularly after Miller's spin. Although, like you say, he was starting to catch up to you. Was there a point where you suddenly noticed he was catching, or did you expect, once you'd taken the lead, that he is going to come back to me eventually?
Well, I thought I would have had a couple of seconds in hand at the line, but there was an incident like 3 or 4 laps before where a car spun in front of me, and it was like over a hill, so I had to slow down for a yellow flag just to be sure to finish the race more than anything, and that brought him right onto the back of me. So it was a bit closer than I expected, to be fair.
Oh, indeed. And going on to the final lap, we did see Grant catch up to you quite quickly down the back straight. I don't know if you've had a chance to catch up with, but he was weaving side to side because I think he had Adam Watson, the race winner overall, coming up behind. Were you perhaps hoping that Adam would get between the two of you before the finish line so you could do a 46th lap, but Miller couldn't?
I wasn't sure what was going on there, because I thought Adam might been a bit respectful with him having a 10-second lead over P2, and me and Grant racing for our class win. So I'm pretty sure Adam was doing the right thing and staying behind, but I wasn't sure what Grant was doing weaving, and I thought he just stayed in my slipstream and just tried to go through.
Oh, fair play. Well, at the end of the day, it worked out for yourself and you were able to hold on by 1.5 tenths. A great win, an unexpected win, you could say. And now, of course, it sets you up for the best possible advantage going to Donington Park. It's not over yet, but now you don't need to win necessarily. You only need to finish within a few places of Grant to take the crown. So does that mean you can take it easy at Donington, or are you going to be coming out all guns blazing?
I'll probably just try and do what I've been doing all season and just finish the best I can, try and get another podium, and that'd be great. If I can get a win, that's even better. But it's just about being consistent, and if I can do that to the end, every race would be great.
Well, indeed, you've been one of our most consistent drivers, not just this season, but in the series history, with all but one result so far being a podium. But to be fair, all the results that count being podiums, unless I'm mistaken. So we'd love to see you make it a record of the season. But just before I do let you go...
Just on that, I'm just looking at the table, and with them being 150 points on the line, I could potentially score over 1,000 points, so I think I might have to just push the bar out a bit and just go for that as a final achievement for the season.
Well, if you were to do that, I mean, at 855 points at the moment, I think you already are heading towards... Let me just double check. I think you are heading towards already the record for the most points ever scored in the UK Sim Racing series. So if you went above 1,000, I think you'd be setting a record that would be very hard to beat. So, like you say, sure, that's now got to give you the extra inspiration to go for that one extra win.
I think I'm going to go have to do that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to you preparing to see whether you can make history, not just the club winner, but also set a point record. But, Martin, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Thank you to yourself, Paul. Your broadcasts have been excellent all season. I'd like to thank all the guys in the club's class. Grant's been very consistent all season. Jordan's been very fast as well. It's just a bit misfortune here and there. He could have been competing up there. I've had a couple of battles with Tom Wheeler and Jordan Butler at times. They've been pretty good on occasions, so it's been really good racing all throughout. So I thank everyone in club class.
100% agree with you there. The club class has absolutely been live with action, and like you say, so many great battles between yourself and so many members of the club class. Well, you've got one battle left to go, Donington next week. We look forward to seeing A, whether you can bring home the crown, but B, whether you can bring home that final win to set a 1,000 point score at the end of the season. But Martin, with that, thank you very much for your time this evening. Well done once again, and we'll see you next round. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, how about that, ladies and gentlemen? Martin points out there, and it is a really good point. He would, if he picked up a win next week, he would end the season on 1,005 points. It's never been done in the UK Sim Racing Sunday GT3 Championship history where a driver has finished the season in excess of 1,000 points. And on 855 right now, it is the highest points total amassed by a single driver in a class all season. Now, understand our point systems have evolved over time, and therefore the points we see today, of course, are not the same points as they were all the way back in past. Not because of inflation, but you get the picture. But still, a very interesting accolade. But what was more interesting, perhaps, was the way that Martin approached today. He mentioned the fact he was here to get a strong result, not the win. However, he accidentally has taken the win because he was the most consistent on the day, and Grant Miller having an unfortunate spin at the turn 10 chicane, just spoiling his chance of controlling the race. However, we did see Martin have to worry about the growing threat of Grant, who was resurgent at the very end, but he was able to hold on, although I was a bit confused by what Grant Miller was doing on that penultimate lap with the weave down the back straight. And well, in the end, the two of them went toe-to-toe to the very end. 1.5 tenths was the gap. And for Martin Kenyon, this has been a season where his consistency has proven to be his ultimate tool, his ultimate asset, and it's the inconsistency of his rivals at certain points that have set the ball apart. But right now, the pit step racing driver, he's almost there to the crown. But of course, he's still got Donington to decide it all. But he knows now destiny is very much in his control. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come, and we'll be back very shortly for our final interview of the day. And well, ladies and gentlemen, as he emerges from the smoke there, we are going to be catching up with none other than Peter Holt in the interclass of the Send It Racing Bulls team and have a chat to him about what has definitely been an intriguing day of racing and in the end, a 6th place finish in the class. But here he comes into the interview, and let's welcome him gladly as he joins me now. Good evening to you, Peter. What a day for yourself today. You've been right in the thick of the fighting from start to finish. Like every other round, you could say. You're never away from an entertaining race.
Paul, yeah, good evening. fantastic race stream again. I actually watch you now. You're broadcasting live, watching on my fourth monitor, so I get to keep in all the race, even when I'm having a bit of a lonely one. But today actually was I was in the mix a bit actually, which was good. Look back of everyone, but yeah, kind of kept getting brought back into it and had a good race with the Swiss guy. I can't remember his name. CK. Can't remember his name.
Oh, Hendrik Zilka.
Yeah, we had a bit of a door bashing in the final corner, and then again he had a nice spin and I drove through him and then he disappeared. But yeah, it was a fun race. It was a fun race. It was a fun track, and it's nice to do a GT3 race here and not have hypercars sending it on you everywhere like in Petit Le Mans. It's a good fun track.
Oh, 100%. And I can hear it in your voice, the fun you've had today. And in qualifying, 23rd overall, 7th in class. I mean, we have seen you qualifying laps this season typically be nipping around the back half of the top 10 in the interclass. Were you happy with your qualifying lap?
Yeah, I actually managed to qualify this time. Most of the time, I'm a new dad, so I'm usually putting my daughter to bed and managed to come back halfway. As a very racing driver, running from the pit box to the track to get my qualifying laps in. So usually starting a bit further back, and qualifying is not my strong suit. I'm much more consistency over raw speed, and good starts and keeping it clean. So yeah, I like to keep it interesting, have a good battle with all the classes. So yeah, it was a good qualifying today actually. Was quite happy with where I started. Not too in the mix, but far enough back that I could get a good start.
Oh, 100%. And with that, of course, when we did go green flag racing, a very smooth start from everyone through the opening few laps, and we did see you make quite a bit of ground in the early stages, battling your way forward. We did see you back and forth with Luke Sherlock, for example, early on, and then, as you say, Hendrik Zilka a bit later. With the two of you, I think it was a game between yourself and Hendrik of who could outbrake the other into the chicane and elbow the other off the road. Did it feel that way from your perspective?
It did, but it's all good fun. I think the racing here is very clean. I don't think there's too many reports every week. So yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun battling with everyone. And yeah, that's the only real overtaking spot on this track. So you have to kind of line that up and send it on in there. I race for Send It Racing with Hayden Young and Tim Probert usually, so it's in our nature to kind of send it down into the hairpins. Otherwise, our team isn't sit behind and wait.
Oh, indeed. Well, you definitely lived up to the team name in the battle there. And it wasn't just about battling with Hendrik Zilka in the first stint of the race. We saw towards the end, you actually have to make the move on Jack Barker as well. I mean, the two of you had the occasional fight this season, but was that a bit of a surprise that you were going to take him on for 6th place at the end?
Yeah, it was actually. I think he got a bit unlucky in traffic and stuff like that. But I hung around and I managed to kind of get myself in a position where I could take advantage of any mistakes rather than being out and out attack. So yeah, I think I kept the car clean, and yeah, it was a good battle. It was a good battle with everyone. I just enjoy racing, to be honest, Paul. It's good fun. Having battles with everyone. I don't really mind if it's for last place or for first place, as long as the battles are good and clean. It's all good fun.
Oh, indeed. Well, that's the best way to approach it. And with the 6th place results, they almost equaling your best result of the season from last time out at Magny-Cours, that 5th place. So the results are trending nicely upwards. What can we expect from you at Donington Park?
Well, I had a little look at the standings, and it seems that I'm within 50 points of Tom Cordy, who of course is finished for the season. So I think if I get a good points finish, I should get into the top 7. I'm not sure how much I have to beat Luke by to get him as well, but yeah, picking up a trophy in my first season in the league would be great. I'm already signed up for next season. I know the sign-ups are open now, everyone, so sign up and join in the fun. But yeah, looking forward to next season as well. Maybe pushing on a bit into the interclass and maybe getting on my teammates back, Hayden. Although I'm sure he'll be heading to the pros, I'm sure, next season.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat right now. Your enthusiasm is absolutely infectious. And we look forward to not just the thought of you being back on the grid for season 19. And if that's not a ringing endorsement from Peter to get on the grid, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what is. We didn't pay him that, although I will give him a brown envelope after this interview. Joking aside, what's to say, though, is the fact that going for the trophies at Donington Park, we wish you all the best luck in your preparations for that. But just before we do let you go, Peter, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
It would be Tim Probert and Hayden Young. We started iRacing around about the same time. We found each other on the forums. We formed a little team, and we've been endurance racing ever since. I think it's our 4th year together now. We've met up in real life. The guys have come over to Germany, where I live, to the Nürburgring. So we've been to a few Nürburgring races and Spa 24, and yeah, finding friends online and that have a similar interest is, for me, is the best thing. And racing with your mates and racing against them. Tim Probert, he's absolutely rapid. I'm glad he's on my team in the endurances. Shout out to those guys, and of course my lovely wife for giving me the time in the evenings to hop off and go racing, and my daughter for being my daughter. She's awesome.
Oh, Peter, that's absolutely lovely. And, well, the story there about how yourself and the Send It Racing guys have come together through online racing, have got to know each other as friends, both on and off on the simulator and in real life. It's a story which never gets old. It's always lovely to hear how it's brought you all together. Yeah. And we love seeing you out there on a weekly basis, and we look forward to seeing you out there at Donington Park, giving it your all for the final round of the season, see if you can take a trophy in your first season. But until then, congratulations on a solid 6th place today, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thanks, mate. I really love the broadcast, so, keep up the good work, and, looking forward to the next one.
Will do. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you one thing. We've got to get Pete Holt in the interview room a little bit more often than this. He's absolutely brilliant. And not just because he's been absolutely lovely about endorsing the series and also enjoying the broadcast, but because of the fact that's the spirit we love to hear at SimRacing International. When the drivers out there just have fun, go racing, enjoy it with teammates, and give it their all. And that's exactly what he's done today, and the results are coming his way. And I do love this perception now. I've got this image, essentially, where, understanding he's had to put his daughter to bed each week, where he has to run into the simulator to be able to go qualifying, or sometimes not be able to qualify. He's essentially doing his practice start for a Le Mans race in real life, having to run to the car and get into it, where all the other drivers are already into it. However, that joking image aside, Pete Holt today, a good qualifying session from him. Send It Racing balls and delivering upon it in the race, and find himself in back and forth fighting with Hendrik Zilken, talking out there the fact that it was respectful racing between them. It was a little bit elbows out, but that happens to be fair in GT racing. But neither driver took each other out. They gave each other room to be able to stay on the circuit. And, well, we all saw Peter late on the race make some ground on Hendrik with his disconnection. A bit of an odd instant coming over turn 11 into 12, and also Jack Bark having a bit of a sideways moment. But in the end, for Pete Holt, it was not going to cost him any places. He was able to pick up the points, and he's targeting a place inside that top 7 in the Inter Championship to bring on home a trophy. Well, he's close to doing it. We'll show you very shortly what the scores look like going into the season finale. I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, with his enthusiasm, there's no reason why he can't do it at Donington. But with that, well, that concludes our interviews for today. And well, I do believe we're going to very shortly give you a recap of who we've spoken to today. And well, just a reminder as well that we will be giving you all the details you need to know about season 19 on next week's broadcast to wrap up the season. But with that, we can now tell you who we spoke. We'll give you a quick reminder of who we've spoken to today. And here's our list of interviewees. And so we'd like to give a big thank you to all 4 of our interviews today. It's always nice to speak to drivers up and down the grid. And remember, our drivers don't need to have won the race or even finished on the podium or even finished in the top 5 to be eligible for an interview. They're all welcome to it, and we love to hear stories up and down the grid. We heard today from our 3 winners in our 3 classes. Firstly, in the Pro class, Adam Watson, the overall and Pro winner, and converted pole position into the win. And talking about the fact he felt very comfortable with the setup of the car and absolutely loves the McLaren around Road Atlanta, and had to make sure to be very decisive with regards to making his way past traffic, but also talking about the struggles of muscle memory, being so used to driving the car in a lower mode to save fuel, and then having to drive flat out on the very end of the race, and not really remembering where he needed to brake or turn in until he put in a few laps together. Hayden Young, we then came to for Send It Racing, the interclass driver, today converting second to first, albeit it was a bit of a difficult one for Mikey Stewart, but he put the pressure on, and then was under pressure himself from sight anti towards the very end, but held on for his second win of the season. And then we heard from Martin Kenyon for Piztech Racing. His goal, finish well today, and my goodness did he finish well, converting third to pole. No, not third to pole, converted third to victory, I should say. And well, for him, his 5th win of the season, but always focused on consistency above all else. And then we came to the man who finished 6th in the interclass day, Peter Holt. A very enthusiastic day for him, and a very happy day, converting 7th to 6th and enjoying some battles out there and not having too lonely of a race for Send It Racing Balls. A huge thank you to all 4 of our interviews for their time this evening. We really do appreciate it as always, and well done to them all on their performances, and we look forward to plenty more interviews in our season finale in a week's time. But just before we do wrap up, ladies and gents, of course, there is the question of how the standings stand now after 9 rounds of racing. And the good news is we can bring you those provisional standings subject to any insurance inquiries, and here they are, starting with the Pro Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, after a grand total of 9 rounds, Harvey Wheeler leads Pro after a 7th place finish today, one of his weakest performances of the season, intriguingly, but still a good recovery drive for the Averso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing driver, and it means he leads by a grand total of 35 points ahead of Thomas Noakes, unless my brain isn't working correctly, and therefore it does mean that for Harvey Wheeler, should he take victory, he will be a champion. Should he take anywhere from first through to third, he will become the champion, but after that, well, it's more fair game for Thomas Noakes, and therefore it's all to play for the MK SimSport driver. And well, he's going to need the win and need Harvey Wheeler to have another difficult day, but the cards are definitely leaning Harvey Wheeler's way. Carl Roy sits in third, and well, could he potentially take the crown? Yes, in theory, if both drivers have a nightmare day, so therefore he's not out of this yet. Neither is Tim Probert for Send It Racing, as he sits 10 points behind the Axis SimSport with SimWorks driver, but understandably we were expecting the fight for third to be between those two, with Max Wheeler meanwhile in 5th for Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing, and we're sitting in a bit of a lonely 5th at the moment, almost the best part of 80 points there for Tim Probert, but in turn, almost 100 points ahead of Fotis Katios, who's not here today. The Split Track Esports driver sits in 6th, just ahead of Thomas Pugh by 4 points, and the Axis SimSports for SimCoach driver moving very close to 6th. Can he break his way into the top 5 when the season is done? And Adam Watson, he definitely wants to get his hands on the trophy if he can, and with that 3rd win now on the board, well, he'll be very eager to make it a 4th win of the season next time out, and in doing so, theoretically, he could take 5th if Max Wheeler, Fotis Katios, and Thomas Pugh all have dismal days in the office. Castle Brotner sits a further 26 points behind after 10th place day, a missed opportunity, perhaps, to break his way into the higher positions, and therefore now slips to 9th and knows he's got pressure from behind, with Archie Williams only 12 points behind. And it's Nathan Anstis and Darren Sharples who complete your Pro Top 12. Meanwhile, in the Interclass, the story is such. Mikey Stewart leads still for that 4th place finish, but he only leads by 21 points. Therefore, it means now that it is essentially all about Hayden Young winning and how close can Mikey Stewart finish behind him. And, well, it's Mikey Stewart who needs to finish 1 place behind to guarantee that crown. Of course, he's mentioned in the chat there, and that is none other than SR20 Mikey, saying, I'll be giving it all for giving my all for the title fight. Don't you worry, Hayden, when we did have Hayden on interview. And therefore, for Mikey Stewart, if he finishes ahead of Hayden Young, the title is his. So Hayden Young has done everything to level the score, but Mikey Stewart is the one who definitely has the slight control of the championship. Sight Ansi sits in 3rd, and his story is one whereby he would need our 2 leaders to have a dismal day in the office, a disaster, if you will, non-finishes essentially for both, if he wants to take the crown. So therefore, it's between him and Jack Barker for 3rd place, with Barker's 7th place finish seeing him slip slightly back, and the Made for Racing driver now has the growing threat of Jake Muttett for Phoenix Racing Blue, whose maiden podium today has really lasted the test of time for him in terms of consistency. And well, it's his first top 5 as well. And can the Phoenix Racing Blue driver potentially upset everybody by making his way into 4th or even 3rd in the end? Tom Cordy, of course, slips to 6th, not on the grid for the remainder of the season. And behind him, Luke Charlotte, 20 points behind. And then the man who's chasing his first season trophy, Peter Holt there for Send It Racing Balls. He's not too far behind either. Hendrik Zilka, well, it was a difficult day for him with that non-finish, but the old dudes in cars driver will be definitely keen to bounce back and see how high he can end this season, with Steve Hughes not in the grid, sitting in 10th, ahead of Brandon Vincent Squibb and Ashley Brooks. Then to the club class we go, and here we can see Martin Kenyon leads the way on 855 points, and with an advantage now, spanning 106 points to Grant Miller, despite Miller's second place to Kenyon's first. Well, for Martin Kenyon, all he theoretically needs to do is finish well. He just needs to really finish the race, and he will very likely be champion. But he's going to go for 1,000 points. And to do that, he needs to win and take his 6th win of the season. And well, can he do so for Pistep Racing? We will see at Donington. Grant Miller, meanwhile, of course, that victory is needed. Can he take his maiden win next time out? He is now comfortably ahead of Tom Wheeler, and he is effectively your second place finisher, barring an exceptional turn of form. With the Averso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing drives 9th place finish, scuppering his chances of stealing away second. And Alexander Vingmart now is only 49 points behind. This late turn of form for the Bates Frost team. Could this be an opportunity for Vingmart to take third in the championship? Well, to do so, he's now ahead of Jordan Maymar. But should Jordan return for the season finale, you can bet he will be going for his 5th win of the season to spoil the chances of Vingmart and also to spoil chances of Martin Kenyon bringing on home that 1,000 point score. Stephen Wilkinson, he's only 4 points behind the top 5 and still looking ever reliable and consistent. But David Young's not too far adrift in 7th. And he would have Jordan Butler, James Connie and Matthew Massey complete that top 10. And well done to Matthew Massey for that second podium of the season. It moves him to 10th, and it moves him so much closer to the top 7 spots. David Pilcher and Ryan Clark, meanwhile, complete your club championship standings top 12. And as for the team's championship, Aversa Rapid by Freewheeler Racing have returned to the top, but only by 15 points over Send It Racing, and it's a further almost 100 points to Access in Sport with SimCoach. It means we've got a 4-way fight for the title on our hands, because Phoenix Racing Red, with only Grant Miller at the helm, they can only get 150 points out of it, but they are still within reach. But it really is a 3-way fight then. But will it be the leaders next time out who bring it home, or will it be one of the 2 main contemporaries? Simcast Racing UK, they hold 5th now, 1,028 points, but they are only a grand total of 60 points or so ahead of Access in Sport with SimWorks, who have had a resurgence today, and UKSimRacing Hamilton, Pitstep Racing are following close behind. In 9th, it's MK Simsport, who are 50 points adrift there from the top 8, but in turn, they are almost 100, well, they're over 100 points ahead of Spectre Racing. So therefore, it seems though the big question marks are who will finish where in the top 3, and who exactly will be in 6th through to 5th place. It's all to play for at Donington Park in the team's championship as much as it is in our drivers' championships. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid for any of our series at SimRacing International, or just find out more or join one of the biggest communities and ever growing here in the sim racing world, operated out of the United Kingdom, we are an international community welcoming anybody from anywhere in the world. Well, of course, all you need to do is join via the official Discord, invite link at the bottom of the screen. And when you do so, you can get on the grid for any one of the following series, which are coming to the close at the moment in terms of the current seasons, but there will be new seasons of them coming up very soon. We have, of course, our Thursday evening Premier GT3 Championship that runs on a weekly basis. Season 12 coming to a close, and Season 13 is just around the corner. Alternatively, if you're a bit of a GTE enthusiast, well, of course, you do have Season 3 of the GTE Championship to look forward to on Friday evenings, with Season 2 having concluded last Friday. But if you do want to be on the grid on Sunday evenings, indeed, you've been tuning into the Sunday evening, the Sunday Showdown UK Sim Racing GT3 Championship, we do have Season 19 around the corner, and we'll tell you all about that and more in next week's season finale broadcast. But if you're looking for something far more casual, we do have our practice league with free races per week on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Saturday evenings. And well, all we need to do to get into that is join our official Discord, and you can see all the information there, and you can get on the grid. We're an esports special all the way through to a rookie racer. We'd be very happy to have you join us on the grid. But we also need to say at this time a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include CarMate, Modern Technology and the GP2 Group. And we must also give a shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division. A huge thank you to them for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to look ahead to our season finale, the Donington Decider. Round number 10 of 10, Sunday, the 7th of June 2026. Save it in your diary, you won't to miss it, because all 4 championships are still open. And whilst there are favourites, well, it's never over till it's over. Indeed, anything can happen until that final checker flag. So who exactly will be our champions? Tune in next time to find out at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. But until then, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. We give a quick shout out there to Pete Holt in the YouTube chat who's been enjoying it. And we say goodbye to him and goodbye to all you guys and girls tuning in for this week. We'll see you next time out. And remember, as always, to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.